handheld gaming used to provide unique worlds and experiences that you simply couldn't get anywhere else. Nowadays, there's a much bigger push to simply take the games that you play on the big screen, on a monitor, whatever that console may be, and take them on the go, which is great. But when portable systems like the Game Boy, the Game Gear, PSP, they're all trying to build up their great exclusive libraries alongside the home consoles, it really brought on this large lineup of games from recognizable franchises that were all different in a wide range of ways. The reality is, no matter how much you may have enjoyed a lot of these games, it was very clear that the big companies were saving all of the big money for the next big console release, while the handheld releases were all uniquely experimental in regards to mechanics, overall budget, even who developed it. Ratchet & Clank on PSP was not made by Insomniac like the main games were. The Mario & Luigi series showed a side of this franchise that you couldn't get on console, and boy, we got some jank-ass Sonic games on the Game Gear, boy, like Sonic Blast, oh my god. And hell, sometimes you would even get the inverse, with handheld Pokemon being the main thing while the consoles got exclusively, weird stuff, like god, Pokemon Channel, that was a weird piece of software right there. Point being, handheld gaming and console gaming, despite how some companies are trying to market them, were two totally different worlds. Up until, like, the Switch and the Steam Deck decided to show up and change the entire game. I guess, literally. And of course today, we're talking about The Legend of Zelda. You know, for the majority of this series' life, a lot of people were making the arguments that these games were just too similar to each other. From Ocarina to Wind Waker to Skyward Sword, doesn't matter, say whichever one you want. They were far too derivative, and Nintendo can't make an original Zelda game to save their lives. I think that was often said by people who just simply like to complain, but it is what it is. On the handhelds though, that couldn't be any further from the truth. Assuming the Switch's console handheld hybrid idea is here to stay, then we can officially cap off the portable Zelda lineup at 7 games, at least 1 per console generation. Of course, this is simply referring to the proper adventures here, not like the classic NES series ports of Zelda 1 and 2, those are pretty self-explanatory. There's Hyrule Warriors, that got a 3DS port for some reason, always forget Legends exists. Can't forget about Game & Watch Zelda, conveniently ported to Game & Watch Gallery 4, that's nice, you know, game preservation and all that. Of course, there's the Game Watch Zelda, not to be confused with the Game & Watch Zelda, this is simply Game Watch Zelda. What, you didn't know about this? Oh my god, you fake fan. Also not to be confused with the newer Game & Watch Zelda, giving us the worst way to play a few classic Zelda games, and also Vermin for some reason. There's the Link to the Past GBA port that features a handful of changes and even a brand new side quest and dungeon, that's pretty cool. Of course, there's both Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask for the 3DS, which feature a ton of changes, so much so that people prefer the 64 Majora's Mask to the 3DS one. I am not that person, but hey, they still exist, and therefore, they're pretty cool. But are they cooler than My Nintendo Picross, The Legend of Zelda, Twilight Princess for the Nintendo 3DS exclusive from the My Nintendo service? I did not think so. Certainly not as cool as that time Nintendo put a Twilight Princess trailer on a DS cartridge for E3 2005 that currently goes for, oh Jesus Christ. All I'm trying to say here is that portable Zelda and home console Zelda were two very different things that just so happened to have a lot of elements overlapping. Yes, the console games were changing things up visually with each installment, and each one is great in its own right, but it was on the handhelds where almost every single adventure was created to be different than the last. As for the multiplayer games like Four Swords and Triforce Heroes, as well as those weird-ass Tingle games for the DS, well, stay tuned. Those games are gonna get their time to shine in the future. Just be patient. I got a lot on my plate for this one video as it is. So today, I want to show some appreciation for some of the Zelda games that really helped define Nintendo's handheld legacy. Alright, listen, I know this is on console, it is a remake, but it is a console game, and some of these games are getting released digitally on the Nintendo Switch Online app, so what makes a handheld game anymore? Like, I get it. You know exactly what I'm trying to get at here. And naturally, there is no better place to start than the very beginning. The frog for whom the bell tolls. Oh what, I'm sorry, were you expecting something else? I'll never miss an opportunity to talk about Frog Game. Many people do know this story by now, but let's quickly jump forward to Link's Awakening, a game that breaks many conventions of the typical Zelda format, including a bunch of references to other Nintendo characters. Yoshi, Dr. Wright from SimCity, and even Kirby, man. Hell yeah, dude, there he is. But of course, partway through your adventure, there's that one house featuring a character named Prince Richard, surrounded by a bunch of frogs with a unique theme song to accompany him. It's not like Richard has much to do with the plot, he tells tells you to gather some items from the castle nearby, and after doing so, Richard will give you a dungeon key, and then you move on, and that's about it. And alas, Richard was not an original character. He's from this Game Boy game that never left Japan. Thank God for fan translations, man. Now the game is readily accessible, and it is so worth it. The kicker is, before playing it, I thought Richard was the main character, but no, he's not the main character of this game. It's that random assist trophy little guy in Smash that can turn into a frog and a snake. That's the main character. Prince Sable. That unique and abstract narrative with a quirky sense of humor that really helped Link's Game Boy debut stand out is in full force here in Frog Game. It's just a lot easier to say Frog Game, I'm gonna be honest with you. I mean, it's a plot that has you being cursed so that if you fall into water, you turn into a frog. I figure the whole part about this game having a unique narrative is pretty obvious. In general though, it is a pretty simple story about needing to save Princess Tiramisu, and the story has you traveling through different towns, defeating many enemies with quote-unquote combat, which is really just you going into this big old dust cloud and hoping you do more damage than your enemy does. It is exactly how the assist trophy handle things, and that is amazing actually. And also, a whole lot of side-scrolling platforming. Yeah, the top-down stuff is pretty Zelda-like in that it's a lot of exploration and learning what paths to take and what not to take, but the plentiful dungeons and caves in this adventure are actually all platforming based, and it feels surprisingly solid all these years later. This is a really fun game to play. It doesn't feel like it's dated in the slightest. But while the main mechanics in this game are definitely sound, it's all about what exactly you're doing. Like, eventually you free a woolly mammoth and you have to take it down. That's, for some reason, I don't know, I just think that's funny. And this is hours after you take a boat ride to an island to visit Nintendo headquarters to get help from a scientist that will only trust you if you also like sushi with a lot of wasabi. Dude, I am so happy this fan translation exists, man. God, and the music is incredible too. Like the main theme song when you're exploring the overworld, it's so damn good. Listen, this isn't an adventure that is as open and sprawling as a typical Zelda game. It's mostly a pretty linear affair, but knowing how different of a vibe the Game Boy Zelda games would have in the years to follow, and to know that that influence started here, it's really cool to see that this is an adventure that stands out on its own, and it's still a ton of fun. Not many Game Boy games have held up over time, but easily this game does, and it will never not be a damn shame that Nintendo did not localize this back in the day, and yet they published stupid Mickey Mouse magic wands. God, I'm mad now. The origins of the handheld Zelda lineup, starting off with a different project that is totally independent with Frog Game, is actually very similar to how the Mario and Luigi series started with a different project as well, with Tomato Adventure. And I can't speak for everybody here, but something about seeing where these series roots really started from with a fully fleshed out game that's really good, I think that's really cool. Frog Game, highly recommended. Of all the handheld Zelda adventures out there, Link's Awakening is easily the one with the strongest reputation. Not just for being a new entry in the series, but this time on the Game Boy, ooh. It's as I mentioned before, this adventure lacks many of the core ideals that this franchise was built upon. Granted, this is only the fourth game in said franchise, the second of which was already a very weird one, but still. Here we have Link waking up on the mysterious Koholint Island after a shipwreck, and we have a ton of secrets to be uncovered in this weird new place. And while a lot of the core gameplay did remain similar, you know, you get your sword, you'll go through dungeons, you'll find familiar enemies, etc, the world that you inhabit and the characters within could not be more different. There's no Triforce, there's no Ganon, and weirdest of all, no Zelda. You do still get items to help you out along the way, but for the first time ever, you can have a loadout where neither button option is your sword. Granted, this is more so due to button limitations than them wanting to actually go about this way, but hey, it led to some new puzzle opportunities like combining your dash with the jump for some high-speed platforming, which is extra helpful for the many side-scrolling sections, injecting a little bit of Zelda 2 into a more traditional top-down Zelda format. There's also this level of self-awareness with the villagers too, like there are these two kids playing catch that tell you how to save the game, before also saying that they don't even know what that means. You'll find this father in his house who will warn you that he will be lost later on in the game. And sure enough, he is. This thing, like, okay, so there's this weird little wiggly enemy, you know, his name is Kookman, by the way, found that out, that will zap you if you slash it, and when you do, it'll say a comment, like, it can display millions of polygons. Yo, what the fuck? You can steal an item from the village shop if you want to. All you gotta do is grab the item and spin around a few times, and then when he's not looking, boom, you're gone. But the thing is, if you do, the next time you walk in, the shopkeeper will kill you, and then your save file will permanently be labeled as thief. That is amazing. And that doesn't even include all of the Nintendo references that I mentioned earlier. Like, dude, Kirby's here, man. Of course his game is great. Oh, sorry, his name is Anti-Kirby. Ooh, whatever. Still perfection. Dude, like, Wart is in this game, and he sings to you. It's crazy. Koholint Island is easily the wildest world Link has ever explored, especially once the story really starts to unfold. You see, the only way for Link to escape is to gather all of these magical instruments from the dungeons, and wake the windfish on top of the island's tallest mountain. However, it is slowly revealed to you as you're defeating the bosses that doing so will allegedly cause the island to disappear, as well as all of the inhabitants. It really makes for this interesting dichotomy where the world has some of the most charming elements in the entire series, but the quest is all about working towards a goal that will eliminate all of it. And I'm sorry, I took Marin out on a date and watched her sing the Ballad of the Windfish in front of a bunch of little animals in their own little animal village. I want to be with her for the rest of my life. But that is realistically all window dressing for this adventure. When you really boil this game down to just the gameplay, then yeah, it's a top-down Zelda game, alright. Traversal does hit pretty different once you get the Roc's Feather and then you can jump, and that's really cool, but otherwise, exploring the world, figuring out where your next destination is, going off the beaten path for some heart pieces or other items. It's pretty standard stuff. My only main issue here is that sometimes the path to progression is a bit too obscure. Like, the game does do a decent job pointing you in the right direction, but I would be lying if I said I didn't have to pull up a guide once or twice for some really true proper guidance. But maybe I'm just an idiot. I don't know. I sometimes keep forgetting that Ulrira is right there, ready to direct me whenever you run into a phone booth. He's always ready to go, and I forget to use him. Also, did you know that Ulrira's house is actually shaped like a phone? Yo, that's crazy. Although, one major problem, if I ever see an acorn ever again, I will go on a rampage. You know what? I take it back. The worst thing about this game is easily the stupid acorns. Like, you get one of these things and it gives you an attack bonus until you take enough damage and then it goes away, and that's all fine and good, more attack. Hooray! But they show up so often, and whenever you touch one, it plays this stupid jingle the entire time, overlapping the rest of the game's great music. I see one, I feel fear, it blocks my pathway sometimes and I want to die, and then I have to touch it in order to progress, and then I hear the kill me. In terms of general quality of life though, there are things that the Switch version definitely handles better. The sword, shield, and dash abilities are all permanently active, making item management so much easier since it's less time pausing the game over and over again to change things out. Overworld exploration is no longer consistently having single screens that scroll by, it really helps with the game's flow. And the map is a lot easier to decipher specific landmarks. I like that a whole lot because once again, I'm an idiot. There are some performance issues here and there, which is very strange, but even still, the Switch version, in my opinion, is the way to go here. But it is still nice to go back and appreciate what they managed to accomplish on the Game Boy. Something that is lost and definitely missed in the Switch version is the photo quest, where you can do certain things and go to specific places to activate these cute little photo opportunities that you can print out with the Game Boy printer, because oh man, that thing actually exists. Instead, in the remake, we got a dungeon maker, which... Yeah, it's kind of lame, to be honest. But regardless, whether on Game Boy Color or Switch, Link's Awakening is a great and unforgettable Legend of Zelda adventure, just without the Zelda part. And it is a great beginning for what is to come in the future. Just don't even bother with the original Game Boy version. Like, yeah, it's neat, it's fine. Seeing the game with only 4 colors, ooh, it's so cool. But the DX version is objectively better and features a whole new dungeon based on color. Let's not pretend like the original version is still worth it, okay? Still good, but come on now. Wow, a good Zelda game? What are the odds of that? Despite how different Link's Awakening was at the time of release, it's really what's to come after that is far more compelling in my opinion, because while that original game was made in-house at Nintendo, that's really cool, the next 3 games were developed by Capcom. I know we've all come to accept that, but still a very weird thing. The Oracle of Ages and the Oracle of Seasons. Many people discuss these games as if they're simply 2 halves of a single adventure, and honestly, that always does these games a really big disservice. Like, whenever people would rank Zelda games and they would put these 2 in the same spot, like, no. What are you doing? Sure, Nintendo did go for the same 2-version simultaneous release idea that Pokemon did, which was 2 versions of the same game, but the beauty of the Oracle games is that they are 2 completely independent adventures, each with a different main focus, ages being puzzles and seasons being combat. The kicker is, they do just so happen to have a really cool gimmick where you get a specific code after beating whichever game you play first that you can input at the start of the second adventure that will not only include a big final boss and extra ending, but also throw in a bunch of characters that reference your first adventure, and will even provide additional codes to swap between games to unlock items in both games. This is wild, man. This is like some stop and swap from Banjo-Kazooie like tech, but actually in a final product. For this playthrough, I started with ages first. It's higher up in the alphabet. I figured, why not? That's good enough of a reason. In this story, Link has been transported by the power of the Triforce to the world of Labrynna, and before long, it turns out that Impa, who had helped bring you to the Oracle of Ages, Nehru, was taken over by the evil Verin, and once thrown aside, Nehru is taken away for no doubt nefarious purposes. And once again, no Zelda here. That's kind of cool. We're really committing to this. And then, yeah, you go on a quest to save Nehru. Makes sense. One thing that's noticeable right off the bat is that this world feels a lot more populated with a wider range of people. Certainly not as wacky or out there as Link's Awakening was, but still, just within the first hour you get to explore the mines with people hard at work. You get help from this giant sentient tree that has a crush on you. That's weird, but okay. There's this baby that you can name early on in the adventure and watch it grow up over time. I named mine Blimp, by the way. Look at him. He's adorable. He has my eyes. And then later on, look at that. The Gorons are here. Love those guys. Oh, Ralph is here too. And he rocks a diagonal belt buckle. Dude is crazy. Now contrast this with Seasons, which has almost the same exact setup. Due to the power of the Triforce, Link gets transported to a new land, this time Holodrum, and after a little bit of exploring, you run into Impa and the Oracle of, this time Seasons, Din. And then you're partying, you're having a good time, but hey, the sky goes dark and a tornado steals the Oracle away, and they are now held captive by the evil Onyx. And then, yeah, you go on a quest to save Din this time. The world may be different, but a lot of the same perks still apply. Plenty of new characters like these cute little guys in the lava world of Subrosia. There's another big sentient tree to guide you, this time one that doesn't have a massive crush on you. At least, I think so. And since I played ages first, I got to see Adult Blimp right from the very start. Look at him. I'm so proud of them, they grow up so fast. And hey, look at that, the Zoras are in this one. Oh, I love those guys too. Only downside, no Ralph. No Ralph in sight. Spoilers, I like ages a lot more than Seasons for multiple reasons. And this is primarily one of the reasons why. That diagonal belt, it goes really hard. But don't get it twisted, the premises of these adventures are definitely very similar, but the adventures as a whole, they totally stand out on their own. Coming from Link's Awakening, they are very much cut from the same cloth, we're built on top of the same engine after all, so things like customizing what both face buttons do, that's still here. But also progression between dungeons remains largely the same as well. It is still a classic Zelda game after all. But this time, there's rideable mounts! 3 of them! Hoo-hoo! Dude, at 3 different points in both games, there are 3 animals that you can help out. The Dodongo Dimitri, the Flying Bear Moosh, and the Punching Kangaroo Ricky. And after you help them, you get to pick one to use at your command whenever you want. And there are multiple sections of these worlds that require each of their abilities. It is so awesome. The only downside is, yeah, you only get to pick one, and then once you do, you can't call the other 2. That's kind of a shame. I think it was to emphasize playing this game multiple times, but I'm not gonna do that, and it's okay. It's not like there's a better choice than Ricky anyway. I know this is gonna lead to some fighting in the comments, but listen, the tried and true theory, everyone's allowed to have their own opinion, it's totally fine. And also, have you seen that video of the kangaroo trying to break into that guy's house? I would much rather be a friend of a kangaroo than an enemy. Not gonna happen. I'm making the right choice here. Moosh is a beanbag chair. Who cares? I made the right choice. Both games also share a very similar overworld gimmick, where you can transport yourself to a different form of the land that you're on when standing on specific pedestals and playing an instrument. In Ages, you swap back and forth between past and present, and in Seasons, you swap between spring, summer, fall, and winter. And this is the primary source of interesting design for both Labrynna and Holodrum. Learning which of the time periods or seasons is the key to progression. And even though we only got 2 options in Ages and 4 in Seasons, the level of complexity, is actually pretty identical. Labrynna, being time-based, allows for puzzles that are a little bit more nuanced. You get to do things like talking to Goron ancestors to influence how their offspring will act in the present. While Holodrum, being season-based, allows for puzzles that are a little bit more simplistic, like water being frozen when it's turned into winter, and special flowers that are growing when it's turned into spring. The seasonal changes lead to more visually distinct aesthetics, while personally speaking, the time period changes lead to deeper and more interesting character interactions. Both are good, they both have pros and cons, and they're both good at the thing that the other game isn't. They do complement each other really well. Yo, at some point in Ages, there's this one island where these little lizard people steal all of your gear and you have to go get it back. This is prototype Eventide Island from Breath of the Wild, and I will not be told differently. Motherfucking Tingle, baby! And the dungeons are also a major standout. As I mentioned before, Ages is based on puzzles and Seasons is based on combat. And before playing these games for the first time, I didn't really understand what that meant, but quite frankly, it really doesn't get much deeper than that. The dungeons in Ages have many more instances of figuring out how the items that you get within are used to flip switches and open doors and whatnot, the typical thing you would expect, but just a whole lot more of it. While the dungeons in Seasons have many more rooms that are all about just throwing a bunch of enemies at you and defeating them is what will open the door. Ages has the switch hook item that lets you swap places with certain blocks to pass over holes and ledges and whatnot, and Seasons has the magnetic gloves to push and pull you away from different magnetic poles, while also making the most annoying sound in the universe. Obviously, Ages still has combat and Seasons still has puzzles, so while these differences are apparent, like these games as a whole, they all still feel like proper fleshed out dungeons, and it all comes down to which style you prefer. And yes, to me, I think the Ages dungeons are some of the best in portable Zelda history. The dungeons and Seasons are fine. I could see if you really like the style of the combat in these games, and you would definitely prefer Seasons over Ages, totally makes sense, but yeah, for me, puzzles all the way. If anything though, the most interesting thing about the dungeons and Seasons is that some of them are almost straight up recreations of the maps from Zelda 1 on NES. And even a heavy majority of the bosses are also from Zelda 1, with some also being from Link to the Past. It's a ton of references, and I'm a big fan. It's funny, the story goes there was supposed to be a third Oracle game to release alongside the two that actually did release, which would feature Furore as the Oracle, and it was essentially supposed to be a full remake of the game that started it all. But considering Seasons already has so much of that game's core DNA, I wonder what that game would have been like if a third Oracle game did release, and what that adventure would even provide at all that would set itself apart from the other two. But I'm sure Nintendo realized that trying to link 3 separate games together would lead to headaches for gamers in every generation until the end of time, so it was likely scrapped for good reason. I mean, if you really try to think about it, what is another game that released with 3 versions simultaneously? Mega Man Star Force 1. You know it's bad if Star Force is the first thing to come to mind. Apparently, during development, what was initially proposed was a whopping 6 Zelda games for the Game Boy Color, each of them releasing like 4 or 5 months apart, and yeah, you know what, I'm really happy that didn't happen. A lot of conversation gets muddied with the Oracles duo due to how the two games relate to each other, and honestly, I really don't think I helped matters here, but hey, the bottom line is I think more people simply know what these games' gimmicks are all about than actually having played them. In my opinion, it does not matter which of these two you start off with, they are both incredibly well done standalone adventures with a pretty unbeatable feeling during the second game talking about your first quest. That is so damn cool. And hey, if you do go the distance, you even get to appreciate Zelda and Ganon showing up too. Yes, Zelda is actually here, but only after linking the games together. That is quite the reward. For me, it's no contest. The 2 Oracle games are the most underappreciated titles in this series. And dude, Capcom made these? What's interesting is while Capcom is the logo at the game's boot up, it's important to know that these games are actually worked on by a subsidiary of Capcom at the time, Flagship, a team that does have a few other titles under their belt for sure, but most notably, Kirby and the Amazing Mirror and Kirby Squeak Squad. What, me? Miss an opportunity to talk about Kirby? It's just kind of funny. Actually, you see in Kirby Squeak Squad, one of the copy abilities that was introduced is Animal, where the main gimmick are your claws that you can not only use to slash enemies, but also dig tile by tile in huge piles of dirt. Oh hey, look at that! The Legend of Zelda, The Minish Cap, the third and final Zelda game developed by Flagship, and this time for the Game Boy Advance. Dude, this game God, this game is so good. Releasing years after the Link to the Past GBA port, further finalizing the idea that this system was basically just a handheld Super Nintendo, here comes the Minish Cap, an entirely brand new adventure that plays similar to A Link to the Past, but with a sweet shrinking down mechanic that really feels like we're approaching top-down Zelda perfection here. It's been 100 years since the tiny Picori descended from the skies to assist in ridding the evil spirits from the land of Hyrule by providing the Picori blade to a hero wearing green. And this year we had a sword fighting tournament, which was won by the mysterious Vati, who... I mean, yeah, he's evil. Like, you can't have a name like Vati and not have bad intentions. Like, you were born for this, dude. Vati shatters the Picori blade and opens up the bound chest, which had been sealed by the Picori blade, unleashing evil monsters across the land, and turns Princess Zelda to stone just for good measure. Yeah, now it's time to go on a quest to save Zelda. You knew this was coming. But this time with a talking hat. It's the one thing this franchise had been missing up until this point, and I hope in an alternate universe, Ezlo and Cappy are friends. This is also yet another one of those games where Ganondorf doesn't make a single appearance. I'm really loving this move to create new villains that try to stand out on their own instead of just ultimately being a servant to Ganon. Like, I really like this whole thing a lot. Like, yeah, the Oracles did have Ganon in the ultimate ending, but that's mostly Twin Rova's doing, and like the boss fight is pretty easy, like a 2-minute thing. He's an afterthought as far as I'm concerned. And hell, even in Link's Awakening with the final boss being this like weird shadow nightmare vision of maybe Ganon, leaves a much better impact anyway given that game's dreamlike narrative. Sorry, am I getting sidetracked? You see, Ezlo is a Minish, and he was actually Vati's mentor at one point, but after he was given a magical cap that allows the wearer to grant wishes, Vati used it to become a powerful sorcerer, turning Ezlo into a cap in the process. It does sound pretty grim, but Ezlo has one magic trick up his sleeve. He's a hat, he doesn't have sleeves. If you jump onto specific pedestals, you can now shrink down in size. And this is it. This is the core concept that Minish Cap is all about. And damn, it is such a strong one at that. The general traversal of the world is as typical top-down Zelda as you can get, but it is so damn cool shrinking down in size so you can walk these tiny hallways avoiding giant sticks under giant leaves, being able to float and push yourself along on these lily pads. And dude, the first boss is a stupid choo-choo, but big. This is incredible. We got big Yoshi's Island energy here, and I'm a big fan. Of all of the Link gets to travel to an alternate version of the main world idea in this entire franchise, I gotta say, turning small is easily my favorite. Maybe it's just because I've always loved when games have you feeling really tiny, like big Chippendale Rescue Rangers for the NES vibes here too. Love that game. But like, when you're tiny here, you get to talk to animals. And that's just rad, okay? But really, when you boil it down, this is simply a super polished old school Zelda experience, almost like a spiritual successor to Link to the Past over 10 years in the making. Many of the items are familiar, but then you also get the Gust Jar to shoot out puffs of wind, the Cane of Paki that lets you flip different items, as well as create these high jump portals out of these little holes in the ground. Yo, the Four Sword is here and it lets Link duplicate himself. That's really cool. These new items are sick. Dude, and the dungeon designs are superb here too. Big shout out to the Palace of Winds, dare I say, one of my favorite dungeons in this entire franchise. The music is great, the general aesthetic is great, and there's an absolutely epic boss in the sky. I love this so much. Hey, look at that, all the oracles are here too, look at them. Hell yeah, man. And plus, when you really look at this whole thing big picture, like, it's a game about becoming small and it was released on a system meant to be thrown in your pocket. That's just cute. That being said though, the world does feel relatively small too. You check the map here, it's like, there really aren't that many areas to explore. This Hyrule is fairly fun-sized. But because the playstyle is so much fun, and these areas are so densely packed when you consider the places you can get to just by shrinking down, this is far from a problem. If anything, the main complaints go down to items like the Kinstones, but honestly, I kinda like these too. There are these characters all across the land that have at least one half of a kinstone and they request the other. There's a handful of different colors, a bunch of different shapes, there are a ton of combinations, and you find kinstone pieces in a ton of different places and ways too. It can get a bit grindy, but in my opinion, it is fairly inoffensive. It's kinda like that part in Skyward Sword where you would slash these blocks with a Skyward Strike and then something would happen in the sky. Like, something about this dynamic I'm really a fan of. Now on the other hand, grinding out the stupid gacha machine for over 100 stupid figures just to get one stupid piece of heart, yeah, that's trash. It's already bad enough grinding for some of the kinstones, but this? Oh god, no. As good as this game is, one of the series' best, no doubt, don't complete it. Just enjoy the ride at your own pace, and then call it quits when the credits roll. It is not worth the literal heartache here. You may have morbid curiosity and think, oh, it can't be that bad. No, just please don't do it. Simply don't go for 100% completion, and Minish Cap will remain one of the best adventures Link has ever gone on. And that would wrap up the Capcom flagship Zelda trilogy. 3 adventures built off of the basis of Link's Awakening and a little bit of Link to the Past to show off Hyrule and a few other kingdoms in a totally fresh way this series was not doing up until that point. 3 awesome games, Capcom did a great job, high recommendations all around. And then things got weird. In a shocking turn of events, Nintendo decided to make a direct sequel to The Wind Waker, but rather than do it on a console, it would be the DS that would become the home to Wind Waker 2 and 3 essentially, Phantom Hourglass, and Spirit Tracks. I can kinda see the rationale behind this, you know, Toon Link and the cel-shaded art style of this iteration of the universe is able to be adapted to the relatively low-powered DS more easily than the more realistic proportions of the lame non-Toon Link. So ditch the sprites and make the character models look decent, slap in a bunch of touchscreen and oh god, microphone gimmicks, I'm gonna vomit, and go about your merry way. Hell, these games even have multiplayer and like no one talks about this. But like I said, we'll get to it later. Kinda similar to the Oracle games, both of these adventures often get lumped together in the same conversation, and while aesthetically there is a good amount that sets each game apart, mechanically and how you progress through the adventures, yeah, both of these games are pretty damn identical. Phantom Hourglass tells a story with the same Link and Tetra from Wind Waker, while Spirit Tracks takes place 100 years later, with a new and shockingly identical looking Link and Zelda. PH Link and Tetra are on another seafaring adventure before an evil ghost ship ambushes them, taking Tetra and causing Link to fall overboard. ST Link is working to become Zelda's official royal engineer, but when you become warned of the suspicious Chancellor Cole and his evil intentions, you get it? Cole, cause it's a train game, haha, he violently reveals his evil scheme by eliminating the Spirit Tracks. Ha! That's the title of the game! And his assistant Burn, kills Zelda. But it's okay, she's not really dead, she's just like, kinda dead. It's actually pretty funny in context, like Zelda really hates being a ghost this time around, and you know what? Can't blame her. Both of these stories give serviceable enough plots as a mean to get you started doing the typical Zelda thing. But again, props for continuing this portable Zelda trend of not relying on Ganon to get your point across. I love this, even though, you know, Chancellor Cole and whatever the hell is at the end of Phantom Hourglass, like, who even cares? I appreciate the attempt. And also, Spirit Tracks has train people in it with, like, Ace Attorney level punny names. You know, the main one is named Angine, like engine, hahaha. I'm a sucker for this dumb stuff, man. Once you get the initial story out of the way and the game started, I feel like these games are a little more similar to each other than the Oracle games are. Mostly just the visual dressing and the main form of transportation being the primary differences. See, the main thing now with these games is everything is done with the touchscreen, like, god, it's like basically everything. Moving, attacking, utilizing items like drawing a path for the boomerang, and aiming where your arrows go. It's all via touch. And like, listen, I love gimmicky Nintendo nonsense as much as the next guy. Rhythm Heaven for the DS, all touchscreen. You don't see me complaining. Metroid Prime Hunters, that's already pushing it. But here, the problem soon becomes apparent that this control scheme simply makes it more difficult to be as precise as you know you could be if you had actual button input. And that's ignoring the fact that your dumb fat fingers are already blocking part of the screen at all times. Attacking, it can be kind of precise. You tap the enemies you want to go for. Slashing is already kind of a mixed bag, but tapping, I mean, that works. But moving and trying to not jump off of a ledge by accident, yeah, not so much. Heaven forbid you try to push and pull blocks at a decent pace too. Like, god, it's so slow and you gotta tap and hold on the direction you want to go. It's not intuitive at all. Oh god, and in Phantom Hourglass, rolling was done by making tiny circle motions at fast speeds on the edge of the screen. It sucks a whole lot. It became tapping the edge of the screen in Spirit Tracks, thank god, but still, not great. The thing is though, considering games like Metroid Prime Hunters and Kid Icarus Uprising also exist with very similar problems, your mileage is going to vary with any game of this style. The DS brought along with it a lot of gimmicky ideas, some of them worked and some of them didn't, it's just a matter of how open you are to them. But all things considered, there are still really clever uses of these gimmicks. Like at any point, you can pull down the map and write down clues, something I wish every Zelda game had. There's this part where you have to literally blow sand off of a sea chart before you can use it, and that's just cute. Oh, and my god, like one of the coolest parts about this game, there's one part where you have to imprint a label onto another chart, and you do so by closing the DS shut to transfer the location onto the map. It only happens once, but it is so damn cool. Remember when you would close a DS during a Mario game and he would go bye-bye? Bye-bye. God, I miss the DS so much, man. Dungeons will sometimes have these really neat puzzles too, like here in the Temple of Courage, where you have to draw out which part of the invisible floor is actually a walkable path. Microphone gimmicks, on the other hand, when it comes to the DS, typically I hate them. Like, one of the first items in Spirit Tracks is this whirlwind thing, where you not only aim the direction with the touchscreen, but you can only use it by blowing into the microphone for an extended period of time. It sucks. But hey, you know what? The Pole's voice enemy is here, and you can only attack it by first blowing into the microphone to stun it, which is a reference to the original Famicom game, where you could defeat them by talking into the second controller's microphone, because yes, the second controller for the Famicom had a microphone. That's really cool. But then, like, you think you have something good on your hands, and then there's this one part where you have to yell into the microphone to get a discount from a shop, and you actually kind of have to do more than just prank the microphone by blowing into it. Instead, you have to actually say something really loudly into it, and that's less cool. I'm the hero of time. Ultimately though, if you put aside the controls, let's say you're a big fan of them, there are still two big problems that plague both games. I was considering saying the dungeons, but truthfully, they're just kind of fine. They're unremarkable, but they're fine at best. They just don't have much in terms of fun and memorable set pieces. But for what they are, they get the job done. Except for the fact that you do physically carry the big key to the boss door now because you're so tiny and oh, that key is so big. That's adorable. Nah, the real problems are the way you transport from location to location and the required temple that you return to in between every dungeon. In Phantom Hourglass, you got the boat, and in Spirit Tracks, the train. Now in Wind Waker, I love exploring because I'm always in control and it is so satisfying saying, well, let's see what's this way, and just going there. Here though, you forego any control. You draw out the path that you want to go with the boat and you stick to pre-assigned paths with the train. You click go and you just go. You do have choice in what direction you go, but it's still weird that you're just letting the thing go and you just kind of let it happen. It's a damn good thing. The theme song for the train overworld is as incredible as it is in Spirit Tracks because man, this is such a pace killer, it's crazy. So much of these two games are spent just staring at the screen and tapping the enemies that they throw at you as a means to ensure that you don't fall asleep. They even threw in collectible bunnies into Spirit Tracks to help with that as well, and I gotta be honest, it doesn't really work. It's cute that there's a new side quest here to worry about, but still almost falling asleep. And then the temples. Oh man. The Temple of the Ocean King is one of the worst things in this entire franchise. It's bad enough that you return to this place after every dungeon that's already kind of repetitive. The same thing happens with Spirit Tracks' Tower of Spirits. But in the Ocean King, you have to repeat the floors that you've already completed in order to get to the part that you couldn't progress through last time. It's not like a straight shot to the next floor either. You have to redo the puzzles. Why? But don't worry, a checkpoint does pop up to skip some of the floors. Once. Halfway through the game. Why only once? Oh, and dude, these sections are timed. You get it? 'Cause Phantom Hourglass? Ha! It's the title of the game. And on top of that, it's stealth-based, so you gotta try avoiding detection, else you get chased. And if you get hit by the things that are chasing you, not only do you have to redo the floor that you got hit on, but you also lose time. And however much time it took you to get to that checkpoint is gonna be how much time you start off with when you jump into the checkpoint when you return next time. So if you didn't have enough time left when you jumped into the checkpoint the first time, then you have to redo all the floors anyway to have a better time. This is horrible. Thank God for the Tower of Spirits, man. They removed everything that made the Ocean King one such bullshit. No more time limit, no more needing to redo floors unless you want some extra items. And since Zelda is a spirit now, she has the ability to take over phantoms once you get enough of the Tears of Light. And you can use that for puzzles that are exclusive to this tower, making it a little bit more exciting to return to. This whole thing is actually really cool. When she's taking over a phantom, she's invulnerable. You can use her to get to high places. She can distract other phantoms. For having a Zelda game where you finally get to have Zelda by your side the entire time, they did a damn good job making her cool. Oh, and also Linebeck is here. He's kind of a dirtbag in both games. The one in Spirit Tracks is many generations on, but he's still the same dirtbag as he was in Phantom Hourglass. He's really cool. I like him a lot. He's a dirtbag, but I don't care. He has my vote. But he's no Ralph, damn it. At the end of the day, while Spirit Tracks, in my eyes, is a vast improvement over Phantom Hourglass, and they are neat novelties if you want to see how a full Zelda adventure translates into a fully gimmicked out DS game, these still end up being pretty low in the franchise as a whole to me. Phantom Hourglass, I would say, is my least favorite Zelda game outside of Zelda 1 and 2. I love and appreciate a lot of what these games represent, and you can tell the developers really tried utilizing the hardware to the best of their abilities with both of these titles, and there are plenty of bright spots that show that. Like these little musical musical flute segments and spirit tracks. They're really charming and they do require the touchscreen and the microphone at the same time. But for me, when it comes to comparing it to all of the other games in this video, these are at the bottom of the Zelda portable ranking list. I know many people love these games still, I do, I know you're out there, but I'm sorry, I'm not that guy. But hey, once again, Linebeck was here. Listen, okay, these games are still good, just relatively speaking, compared to the other games we talked about in this video, they're not as good in my humble opinion. The angry mob is still coming, isn't it? While I may not be the biggest fan of the DS games, I can still appreciate them as more experimental takes on the typical formula. Definitely better to look at them in that light as opposed to a proper evolution of Zelda like we got with the jumps between the Game Boy Color and the Game Boy Advance. But after fulfilling its purpose, it's time for the final entry in the dedicated Nintendo handheld console lineup. The Legend of Zelda, A Link Between Worlds. Hard to believe this game is over 10 years old now. Sorry for making you feel old in the process, by the way. But damn it, this game has not aged a single day. Minish Cap may feel like a spiritual successor to A Link to the Past, but I can't believe that Nintendo made a full-on actual sequel to A Link to the Past as a part of their process to revitalize 3DS sales in 2013. And they released it the same day as Super Mario 3D World. Like, oh my god, the Xbox One released the same day. That's what did that console in, man, not the other shenanigans. It's that deadly Zelda Mario combo pack, holy. And immediately, we are back to a traditional button layout now. Plus, we have smooth analog movement for Link, which, god, it feels so good. The speed and reaction time that you have between pressing the B button and the sword slashing is so damn quick, like, dude, this game feels great. But yes, this is in fact a sequel to A Link to the Past. I mean, for crying out loud, in Japan the game has a big old 2 on it. Hyrule is virtually the same layout as it was back on the Super Nintendo, and while it's not the Dark World this time around, Lorule plays a very similar role, as a slightly modified and visually darker variation with an incredible theme song to accompany it. Or rather than just being the same game all over again, we got a handful of gimmicks and changes to the Zelda format that make this adventure fresh. For one, we got wall mechanics now, thanks to the new villain, Yuga, who happens to be able to turn people 2D. What a power! They took Super Paper Mario and made it a guy. Love to see it. You see, this new bad boy has not only trapped Zelda into a painting, but all of the sages as well. And for any normal plebeian, that means you're trapped forever. But for Link and his brand new magical bracelet, we can just pop in and out whenever we want. This means that we now have a whole new world of walls to latch ourselves onto for traversal, and this is awesome. Sorry, this time Link becomes a wall. Sounds like the dumbest idea ever conceived, but wow, leave it to top tier game developers to make this an incredible mechanic. Attaching yourself to moving walls to travel over gaps, being able to easily wrap to the opposing side of a building, simply dodging certain enemies in boss attacks. Like there's this one boss that is a wall for a shield, you attach yourself onto it, and then he pulls it behind him like, oh, where did he go? And then you slash him from the back. God, it's so cool. This is such a simple idea that is really used to its maximum potential here, and it spices up a world that you thought you knew from the 16-bit days. But arguably even cooler, once you pick up the Master Sword after a few dungeons, you then have the freedom to tackle the remaining 7 dungeons in any order that you want. Rather than relying on the old style of getting an item from a dungeon and using that to get to the next one, you now have the option to rent nearly every single item super early on thanks to the newcomer, Ravio. And yes, rent is the proper word, because if you die, you lose your items and have to rent them again, or spend even more to permanently own them. But quite frankly, after you get enough hearts, dying is rarely an issue, at least for me, so never really was a big deal. But if you're bad at Zelda, you're probably gonna die and rent these items a lot. Sorry about that. Not only does this turn the rest of Hyrule and the entirety of Lorule into an open world, there's also the hidden Maiamai quest. This Maiamai mother lost 100 of her babies. Quite the irresponsible parent, but that's neither here nor there. And these children are everywhere, and it is so rewarding just seeing one on a wall, hearing one nearby, and finding them under a rock. You get one like every 10 paces if you're paying attention. What's also cool is that you also don't have all of Lorule accessible at once. It's chopped up into different segments, where it's required to find the portals in Hyrule to travel through, which then leads to more exploration, meaning your chances of finding more Maiamai are greater, and remembering where these bombable walls are or something else along your journey, it's easier than ever before, and god, the moment-to-moment gameplay here is damn near perfection. It's worth mentioning here too that Lorule has its own Princess Zelda, taking the form of Princess Hilda. I like her, she's kinda cute. Like, let's be honest here, the story in this game is Pretty simplistic. I would argue more simple than like every other portable Zelda game thus far. The main focus of this adventure is just getting on with it and letting you free into the world. Though, that being said, the production values whenever the cutscenes do play out are honestly pretty impressive. Like, this game looks really friggin' good, okay? Zelda is taken, Ravio gives you items, Hilda gives you some advice. Go, who cares, stop reading text, just go. Ganon does finally play a prevalent role in a portable game here, but Yuga is still a pretty strong antagonist. Because, hell, even with Ganon back, he soon merges with Yuga to become a brand new thing. It's kinda just a means to have a visually similar final boss fight with a Ganon-like character, but now with wall attacks. And that's fine, because hey, the entirety of these portable Zelda games did something different with the final bosses still, even though Ganon is technically here. Every Zelda game in this video had a different antagonist, and that's amazing. And plus, we got this brand new sweet artwork replicating the classic Super Nintendo style, so any complaints I have about throwing Ganon back into things should really be thrown out the window because this artwork is so beautiful. I love this so much. It's a shame Link doesn't have pink hair in this one, but you know what? I'll still take it. The pacing, man, the pacing of this game is ridiculous. You are always moving. You are always finding new things. Always slamming face first into every wall you possibly can just for the hell of it, you never know. And you're maybe thinking to yourself, well, what if I don't care about the Maiamai? And first off, what are you, heartless? Look at them. Second off, when you buy items from Ravio, you are then able to upgrade them by returning batches of 10 baby Maiamai to their mother, making them a lot stronger and more useful. This is great. Honestly, I don't even care about the whole renting versus buying thing, it's just a mean to turn the game from a typical linear affair to an open world playground, but the item upgrading really elevates things to the next level, and man, I love it so much. And since the main focus here is just getting to the next dungeon, it does help that said dungeons are incredible. Since now you can only enter the dungeon after having a specific item instead of getting the item partway through it, that means that we have dungeon designs with cool item-based puzzles as soon as you walk in. Clearly, this game doubled as a test for Breath of the Wild when it came to taking the typical Zelda conventions and changing them up and building a new adventure around those new ideas. And while I think ultimately I may still prefer Link to the Past because I do prefer the typical Zelda conventions, it is hard to deny that A Link Between Worlds is not only one of the best 3DS games, but one of the greatest handheld games Nintendo has ever produced. Also, there's baseball. Best Zelda game. You ever see that image of how Nintendo managed to nail the top-down look for this game and it's just Link doing the... That's beautiful. With the Switch being a home console and handheld hybrid, and Nintendo sticking to completely unique experiences for the dedicated handheld mobile scene, I think this is where we can end the lineage of handheld Zelda games. Sure, you can now play Skyward Sword in handheld, and we never know what the future of weird, interesting Zelda ideas will take us, but come on, you know that's not the same thing. These adventures all really tried to do something different with each entry. As the scopes kept growing for the console games, trying to be more and more epic with each one, the handhelds were just trying to do their own thing. They were filling in the time between the next main console game, but at the same time, they were doing something completely original. Yeah, some of these ideas are certainly dated, but it cannot be stressed enough that there was a lot of impressive things that were attempted and achieved with these 7 games that saw the light of day. And also Frog Game, do not forget about Frog Game. If there's any takeaway out of this is that you haven't played Frog Game yet, and you should probably play Frog Game, it's really good. Then, yeah, all that's left are the Tingle games, which are obviously Zelda adjacent, as well as also on handhelds, and then all of the multiplayer games, which primarily made their homes on the handhelds as well. We're gonna get to all of it in due time, don't you worry. I just covered 8 games in one video, okay? I need a little bit of a break. And before anybody gets on my case for not going really in detail with the games I scraped the bottom of the barrel to talk about, I wasn't going to talk about every single handheld Zelda thing that ever existed, okay? Wow, you talked about the Game Watch but didn't go highly in depth with it? Like, what do you want me to say, alright? It just sits right here. This is a handheld Zelda game video. You don't hold it. It just sits on your wrist. We're not talking about wrist sitting games, okay? Duh. What? Handheld Zelda games, a beautiful thing, right? GB, GBC, GBA, DS, 3DS, so many different letters in one number, so many amazing games. But of course, Link isn't the only character in Hyrule to get his own grand tiny screen adventures. Why? Yeah, so for whatever reason, between the years 2006 to 2009, Nintendo and developer Vanpool decided, fuck it, let's give Tingle a shot. When Toad gets a game, everybody cheers. Diddy Kong gets a kart racer, hooray! Pikachu gets a game. and people get confused, but they usually go, yeah, that makes sense. Tingle, on the other hand, like, man, okay. I would have gone with like a farming sim tower defense from Aliens game with Malin first, and if you reply by bringing up the Zelda game for CDI, congratulations, you're skilled at beating a dead horse, good job. Sure, why not? Tingle works too, I guess. Now don't get me wrong here, Tingle's a fine enough guy, living his life in eternal bliss, has a big thing for balloons, I respect it. He can go on a massacre when he's called on to do so, you know, I didn't see that coming, but that's kinda cool too. And he also goes, what's not to love, right? Truly one of the guys of all time. Now we did already cover the main handheld Zelda games last time, but I just couldn't sleep at night until I knew I had Tingle covered as well. Now I can't tell what's crazier, the fact that Tingle starred in his own video game, or the fact he got 4 of them. I guess at the time Tingle did get a new breath of life when Wind Waker dropped, and looking back, everybody hates the Tingle section of that game, but you know, that still happened. There was that whole Tingle tuner mode for the GameCube as well when you connected a GBA to the console, and that was kinda cute, but even though Twilight Princess was the hot new thing in 2006, and that didn't include Tingle, why not give him something to do, you know? You remember that one time when they gave Link a crossbow? Listen, all I'm saying is Nintendo's never been shy about thinking outside the box with this franchise. Also check this out, if you tilt this around a lot, you know, some games have like a holographic cover. This has one too, but it's a bunch of holographic hearts. You probably can't see it on the video, but it's real. That's kinda cool. Now before we continue, I do want to correct something that I said in the last video. I did mention the whole idea that the third Oracle game that was planned was going to be a remake of the NES game. Apparently that wasn't true. Thank you to the dozens and hundreds of people who let me know in very kind ways in the comments section, thank you. And also, I apologize to the Mega Man Star Force fans because I should have also mentioned that Nintendogs is another game that released with 3 versions on the same day. That made a lot more sense. Should have said that. And then I also found out that Mega Man Star Force fans are real, so that was pretty cool too. I almost considered bringing up the Powerpuff Girls games on the Game Boy Color because they look very similar, and I thought they released at the same time, but no, their releases were actually staggered. So that's kind of interesting. That's a fun little bit of trivia for you. But I haven't played them, so I can't confirm their quality or not. I gotta play good games like freshly picked Tingle's Rosyrupy Land. So in total, we got 2 adventures with radically different playstyles, a smaller Japanese Club Nintendo exclusive, and a Japanese DSiWare exclusive. I got all the Japanese copies right here, though miraculously, the first game did actually get a European release, so we got English readily available. Didn't get an American release though. Clearly America couldn't be trusted, and that's understandable. And thankfully, even though the second game didn't release outside of Japan, it did get a sweet fan translation. And as for that Club Nintendo game, well, that doesn't require any reading ability, so yes, we can all experience the pleasures and the confusing, tingling sensations for the entire Tingle sub-franchise, easy peasy. Well, almost. There is that DSiWare game, the Too Much Tingle Pack. It's just a group of toys. Rather than anything substantial, it's kind of weird. There's a coin flipping game, a calculator for both standard equations, and splitting tips between men and women? I got no idea what this is about, honestly. A terrifying Tingle dancer, which makes me feel really weird, though he does look fabulous, I will give him that. There's a tarot card reader, and an alarm clock if you want to wake up to Tingle yelling at you. And who doesn't, honestly? The Tingle Resurgence comes to us from Vanpool, a company including employees from a defunct developer, Love Delic. Yep, that's how you pronounce it. And you may have heard of Vanpool before. They worked on the Dylan's Rolling Western trilogy for the 3DS eShop. They assisted HAL Labs in some Kirby games on the Switch, like Forgotten Land and Return of Dreamland Deluxe. There's the Windrunner minigame and We Play Motion, dude, who can forget about that? But the legacy of Love Delic, God, I hate that name, can be felt in a whole lot more places too. Some of those developers would go on to become Punchline, creator of the cult classic PS2 game, Tulip. There's Audio Incorporated, the creator of the DS RPG Contact, another hidden gem, and even Skip Limited, the creators and killers of Chibi Robo. Makes me sad, probably makes you sad, but that's what it is. But it's their time as their original company, I'm not gonna say it, that's really relevant here because, damn it, I finally get to talk about Moon for a second. Just look at this game for like 20 frames, and it's clear where Tingle's roots are stemmed from. Moon, the remix RPG adventure, is a game like no other. An adventure where the, quote, hero is causing havoc, killing hundreds with reckless abandon, and you play as essentially an NPC in this world, trying to fix all of the damage. It's all about exploring this mysterious land, abiding by all the inhabitants' weird rules no matter how wild they are, and helping them out by any means necessary. You never know what you're gonna expect in a a game like this, and it makes for an incredibly unforgettable adventure. It follows no rules whatsoever, and it feels like a fever dream the entire time. Highly recommended, that's awesome. The best part is that it's actually readily available for modern consoles now, which is crazy because this used to be another one of those games that was simply, quote, too weird for America, releasing for the PlayStation 1 in Japan and staying there for well over 20 years. So, fast forward to 2006 and yeah, here we are. In regards to the seminal title in this resurgence, Tingle's Rosyrupy Land not releasing in America, well, it seemed pretty apparent that Americans just didn't care about it, and Nintendo didn't shy away from that either, going so far as to create an online survey to gauge interest promoted in Nintendo Power. Obviously, they thought Europe can handle this back in 2006, but I'm assuming the sales were so poor the person who decided to localize it was never heard from again. You gotta remember, this is a pre-Operation Rainfall world here. Nowadays, like anything weird will release in the States and Europe, like it doesn't matter. If it has a title and a title screen and you can push buttons into it, it'll release, it doesn't matter. But back then, not so much. Us Americans just could not register in our dumb American brains the quirkiness that Japan had to offer. And if this IGN article from the Tokyo Game Show 2005 is anything to go by, we've seen a screenshot, but it's so confusing that we don't know what to make of it yet. Ultimately, it makes sense why America didn't get the game at the time. Nintendo had to save shelf space for Sudoku Gridmaster and Magnetica instead. Clearly, they're more important. But hey, you know that Tingle Tuner mode from Wind Waker? Why not? Let's give that guy his own games. There's not a whole lot when it comes to the specific development history of this Tingle sub-series, but if you really look at the entire timeline of these developers, it's actually kind of crazy. These games didn't just appear out of nowhere in a puff of smoke and we all just accepted it. Though realistically, if that was the backstory, that would actually make sense. Already feeling a little uncomfortable with the Tingle close-up? We're off to a great start. Welcome to the whimsical world of freshly picked Tingle's Rosyrupy Land. The story begins with a casually dressed Tingle scratching his ass. Exactly what I was hoping for. He's a 35-year-old man trapped in the monotony of everyday life. Ha, relatable, am I right? But today is different. He is quickly guided to a nearby pond and he encounters the enigmatic Uncle Rupee, who persuades Tingle to work with him to reach paradise in Rupee Land. Food, relaxation, women, oh boy, sign me up! You are then gifted the famous green tights and are told to now sacrifice rupees to the pond in order to continue your adventure. Oh, and then you're told how to save the game by this scantily clad fairy in pink named Pinkle through this Tingle Tuner-like device because, of course. This is one of those games where you don't really ask questions. From this point forward, it's all about amassing as much money as possible by any means necessary in a pursuit of the divine goal. And as God or Uncle Ruby has intended, it's batshit insane. You see, I made the foolish mistake of thinking, okay, it's an adventure game in the Zelda universe, it probably plays like a Zelda game. No. Yeah, no, that was stupid of me to assume. You do move around the world in a top-down perspective and you can talk to NPCs. That's about where the comparisons end. Very quickly you're given a combat tutorial and like, it's weird. When you touch an enemy, you start brawling in a giant cloud and eventually just hope that they die before you do. Kinda like the frog game on Game Boy, see, it all ties together. You don't really have any direct control with the combat, you just sort of let it happen. You can tap the enemies with a touchscreen to make it go a little bit faster, but it just happens, man. As the fight continues, you will slowly lose money, which is a big deal because not only is that your primary collectible, it's also your health. Lose all your money and you die. Making this the most realistic Zelda game to date. Oh hey, look at that, a shovel! Like Link's Awakening. You see more callbacks. This really is a Zelda game after all. As long as you do a good job maintaining a solid safety chest of cash, however, there is nothing to worry about, because there are many different ways to fill your pockets. Sometimes you may find rupees just out and about the land. There are sometimes some puzzles to solve, of course. You can also gather items that you can cook back at your home to sell to people back in town. I wouldn't trust a single thing this guy cooks, but hey, at least he's getting paid. But ultimately, you gotta spend money to make money. Virtually every interaction with the world's eccentric NPCs comes at a literal cost. For many of them, before they even get close to helping you, you have to pay them first. And the thing is, you won't know the exact price until you make an offer. And lowballing them not only results in a harsh rejection, but for many, they will keep your money anyway? Like, oh no, you screwed up. I'ma still get that though. You can try again. I'm not gonna help you, but yeah, you know, you can give me more money, that's fine. Not every character works this way, but the fact that there is a non-zero amount of people who do is insane. And sometimes it's the other way around. You'll help someone, they offer to pay you, but how much is up to you. And if you ask for too much money too many times, they will pull back on the offer, and that's it. you, I guess. Knowing I have to pay money, not knowing how much I have to pay, and getting penalized if I pay the wrong amount. What is this, the American tax system? Eventually you run into this dog and he just decides to stay at your home, and then he has green tights of his own while he's there, and this is Barkle. I love him and I will die for him. You want to get past this guard to visit the town? It'll cost you. You want this weird bald kid to finally give you the map to the level? Be prepared to pay up. You ever consider hiring these beefy YMCA dudes to repair bridges for quicker access to previous areas? Well, losing a substantial sum is in your future. Boom. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, dude, and with the maps, like, okay, so you buy the map, right? And then you can fill it out with landmarks and report back to this map lady in town to get some more rupees. Great, it's an excellent way to get a bunch of cash as soon as you get to a new area. Awesome. But if you have a completely filled up map and then report back, she will then by force buy the entire map back from you and will sell it back to you for more than she just spent. And you go back to being mapless for that area, so good luck remembering where things are. What do you mean? And then like at the end of the game when you give her back every single map, she dies. Okay, bye then. It is so bizarre having an adventure with such a loose, figure it out yourself progression system in a Nintendo game. This is very unusual. Off, my valiant stallion, to war we must go. The only other time I can think of a Nintendo game that does something this weird with the in-world economy is Rusty's Real Deal Baseball for the 3DS, but instead of in-game currency with that one, you were actually haggling with real-world money, which was kinda cool. Sure, the relevance in this comparison is very minimal, but damn it, if I don't talk about Rusty, who will? He just wants to see his kids. While haggling is the main theme throughout the entire game, the most common form of this comes in the form of these bodyguards. Every major area has this bar with 3 guards accessible, of varying sizes and battle styles. Some are willing to jump in if you get into battle first, some will just go guns blazing and get into battles whether you want them to or not. Either way, by having any of them by your side, combat is made much easier. Enemies will go down a lot quicker with less money lost, meaning you will have more money to spend later on. Ah yes, who can forget everybody's favorite hidden gem Nintendo character, Steroido. Or, you know, you could just spend every rupee you have on something that you don't need to worry about yet, like the tower, and like practically soft lock yourself out of progression because you now have nothing to work with and you're just gonna die in one hit. So you have to grind for pennies or for items to cook for things to sell back to town, and you just do that ad nauseum until you get your thousands back. What is this game? Listen, playing this game as they intended is an absolute nightmare. I will not lie, I did many a saving and restarting every time I screwed up because I don't have time for this. Time is money. That should be the moral of the game. As the adventure progresses, you drop more and more rupees into the fountain, the tower will continue to grow, and Grandpa Rupee here gets more suspicious over time. But it's okay, you fly to the new area anyway, and you kinda just wander around until you succeed at whatever the quest for that land is. I like this one in particular, where you work with the skeleton pyro crew, and there's this choir of haze playing behind you. That's a real jam, I like it. While most of the time it is just some little side quests here or there are some honest to goodness dungeons as well. This little bit of classic Zelda and an otherwise wild adventure is a calming return to form, and a reminder that at the end of the day, this is still part of that famous series that we all know and love. Oh god, what the f is that? Never thought I'd see the day, but I think I finally found a DS game with far too much animation. There's boss fights in this game, didn't see that coming. They are few and far between, but damn it, they continue to be the weirdest things I ever encountered. Sure, on the bottom screen, the Stalfos fight doesn't look too abnormal. It has pretty good animation here. It doesn't have too much animation like the spider thing. This looks pretty nice. But you look at the top screen, yeah, you know, of course. Modified Punch-Out arcade sprites. Good. Eventually, if it weren't obvious by now, Papa Rupee is clearly taking advantage of us with every single bit that we throw at him. It turns out this entire time, he was lying to us. You son of a bitch! I had an inkling something was wrong when he was starting to pick on this oddly realistic meat surrounded by Agent Smiths. Yeah, this was the moment I knew something was fishy. But with the ultimate rupee finally in our possession, it is time to kick his ass. Oh yeah, okay, yeah, he's pissed off now. Oh, this part, okay, get ready. Get ready for the 3D Tingle jump scare. Oh my god, of course, we're on the moon now, and we're about to dethrone God. This is it's like a classic JRPG. Or a Kirby game. Okay, oh, okay, cool, yeah, a shooter segment. Okay, and I'm using my life points with the rupees, of course, yeah, why not? Oh my gosh. He big. As his final straw, he turns into a giant rupee with the mustache. How evil, but of course, don't worry about it. He is quickly defeated by the overwhelming power of too much money. All of the wealth now gets distributed throughout the land, and that's it. That's how it ends. Unless you do all of the side quests, you fill up Tingle's attic with a bunch of goodies, and you unlock this secret area where you discover that Tingle is actually a real fairy that's been held captive this entire time, and freeing her will assist you in the final fight. You see, you're wearing pink tights now. That's the more deadly color. Completing the game now will then reward you with the paradise you have been fighting for this entire time. Good for him. A couple creepily detailed sprites later, the credits roll, ending freshly picked Tingle's Rosyrupy Land. Is it weird that I like this game a whole lot more than the actual Zelda games that were released for this console? I mean, like, one has a choo-choo train and that's kind of cool, but this one has Steroido in it. I mean, that answer's obvious. Before moving on to the sequel, there's a little spin-off I want to talk about too. Tingle's Balloon Fight. It's Balloon Fight. But Tingle's here. Hey. This isn't even like the weirdest balloon fight game. Like, that's the most bizarre part about all this. Did you know there was a full-blown Game Boy sequel called Balloon Kid that actually got a Famicom port called Hello Kitty World? I had no idea the Balloon Fight IP was this flexible. Even more interesting, Tingle's Balloon Fight was a Club Nintendo Japan exclusive. You had to earn the right to play this game. The best part of all this is probably the box art. A haphazardly cut out picture of Tingle hastily taped onto the existing Balloon Fight box art. I love this. Why stop a balloon fight, you know? Tingle Champion, Tingle Land, Tingle Hunt. There is so much potential here that's just squandered. You gave Luigi a whole year, damn it, do the same with Tingle. Boom, boom, boom. Ripened, Tingle's Balloon Trip of Love. From freshly picked to ripened, that's a damn good title. I am immediately excited and also terrified. The story begins in a similar fashion. Casual Tingle is just chillin' when he suddenly falls for an ad read about a book that tells the story of a hero that leaves his parents to save a princess. And hold on a second, let me check the time. Look at that! Tingle doesn't have a girlfriend. Sign him up immediately. Clearly, as someone with access to same-day delivery, he gets the book as soon as he clicks the buy button without even using a coupon code. He opens it up, and oh man, he gets sucked into its pages. And thus, the adventure begins. To find a girlfriend, I guess? I don't know. I can't move? Am I doing something wrong here? My D-pad just doesn't work with this. Oh, wait, it's a point and click? Walking from area to area, talking to NPCs, zooming in to investigate items, there is no combat. What? I thought the sequel was gonna play at least somewhat similar to the last game, but no! They went and threw us a total curveball by switching up the entire genre. Good day, I am Pig. Yes. Being a more traditional point-and-click adventure, progression is a lot more straightforward. Tingle, my guy, what is you doing? You're not a badass. There's a more conventional chapter structure now, with each page of this love book taking you to a new location, and each page featuring a few chapters that conclude once you do something. Man, like, it's just something. You gotta do something, and then a text thing will pop up, and then, okay, I'm on the next chapter. It's whatever happens, happens. Sometimes you're fastening bolts onto these pipes. Sometimes you're using a slingshot to hit targets. Sometimes you gotta do whatever you can to reclaim all of the runaway train parts in order to get the train to move. One time, you gotta chat up Corn Boy. Dude, they got Corn Boy in this? And unlike Rosyrupy Land where you work with whatever bodyguard you can afford, shout out once again to my boy Steroido, this time you actually have a full party joining you. You got the Scarecrow Boy Kakashi, the Robot High Priestess Bariki, and the Scaredy Cat Lion Warrior, Lion. That's his name. And wait a minute. For this quest, you're told to simply follow this yellow brick road. There's this nice witch that helps push you in the right direction. There's an evil witch as the final antagonist. There's a dog. This is a big old Wizard of Oz reference? Yo, my favorite part about that movie is when Dorothy has to poop and it's accompanied by the Mario Star theme. Who can forget that bombshell cinematic moment? The Wizard of Oz comparisons are certainly very strange, but honestly, Kakashi, Bariki, and Lion are all pretty strong characters in their own regards. The developers were clearly inspired, but rather than simply trying to squeeze Tingle into this classic story, there was a lot of effort made to make these characters stand out in their own peculiar ways, like Kakashi is bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, just happy to be there and provide some assistance. Bariki is more of a passive observer, witnessing all of the insanity that befalls her new party with a very cold demeanor. And slowly watching Lion overcome his fears to utilize his strength is pretty damn charming. And dude, who can forget about the buff squirrel that knocks your lights out? Tell me, just try and tell me that this game isn't better than Phantom Hourglass. I dare you. There's no place like Hyrule. There's no place like Hyrule. Before long, Tingle learns that the only way to get out of this book and go back home is to go to the city and dance with the princess of the world. But it's not just that one princess you're trying to swoon, no. It's any female you come across, you're trying to win them all over, any of them. He doesn't care, he doesn't judge, it's any of them. There are 5 primary ladies that you can win over for the final dance, and you have to maximize your relationship with at least one of them to secure the best ending. All of the other women you can perform your love magic on are either there for progression or just to fill out your little black book with some more hearts. He's just spreading his love as far as he can, man. I respect the ambition. But that is simply what you have to do. How do you do that? Well, it's finally time to win over the girl. Welcome to the love push mode. Throughout your journey, you can acquire a bunch of different presents that all fit into a few different categories. And here in Love Push, it is up to you to try different items to figure out just exactly what the girls like. This is giving me big Persona vibes, that's all I gotta say. And you would think it would take a bit of an understanding of who the character is at their core to know what works and what doesn't, but no. Each item just fits into one of 5 categories and 1 or 2 of 5 descriptors, and it all comes down to what they like, what they dislike, or are indifferent to, and those factors alone carry a lot more weight than the character's actual personalities. Like, that doesn't matter at all, just throw things at them, and if it's a hobby, cool. If they hate hobbies for whatever reason, because who doesn't hate hobbies, just don't give them those things. That's all it boils down to. Reducing a woman's preferences to a bunch of superficial descriptors and then just feeding them a ton of gifts so you can get what you want, and then leaving. Yeah, I can see why this game didn't get localized now. Granted, a lot of the women immediately are scared of you because of your less than model worthy appearance, so, oh man, this is just bad on all fronts. The way this game was structured is certainly one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen Nintendo be a part of, but personally, this is so stupid and dumb and over the top, I'm just enjoying the ride. Having a game all about making girls love you with items, like, sure, that's weird, but it's Tingle. It's this thing! Look, a minigame all about picking turnips out of the ground, preceded by the Super Mario Bros. 2 character select screen. I'm just here for the absurdity, man. I love this. The rupee haggling and the world-exploring approach of Rosyrupy Land was certainly a lot of fun, but I think the point-and-click character interaction-based approach of Balloon Trip of Love is actually more fitting of this take on the character, and certainly shows the narrative strengths of the developer, because peak love-to-lick styled games often revolved around having a relatively boring character entering a crazy world, and rather than having you ask any questions, you just roll with the punches and figure things out as you go. Finally, a game where Tingle can pick up dog poop. Yes! Of course. Alright, monkey, shake this tree. Thank you. You got these behind the back dungeons that you get to go through when you want to grind out some money, ending with this creepy, dancing Majora's Mask style Tingle. You eventually, thanks to the Good Witch, get your iconic balloons, and you can use them to travel through time. Of course. There's a desert that's filled with turn-based battles. It's the only place in the game that does this. Chibi Robo! Chibi Robo! Oh man, that just makes me so damn happy. Dance, Tingle. Dance. Tingle Goat. Oh my god, it's a Tingle Goat. The overall presentation of this game, it is just fantastic. Since exploration is no longer confined to the top-down format of Rosyrupy Land, all of the areas here are a lot more dynamic, colorful, and bustling with NPCs. Tingle actually ends up blending in with the absurdity of the rest of the world a lot more than the last adventure. And when you finish a page and move on to the next one, there's this great drawing that illustrates what you just went through, and it's just so charming. This game has such a great style that somehow took Tingle, this cursed thing from the Zelda universe, gave him this relatively adorable redesign, and crafted a world around him that actually makes sense for this character. I can't believe it. For the majority of this game, I was having a great time. The wackiness that ensues and how Tingle reacts, it's awesome. It's awesome. That being said, there is one part of the adventure that really falls flat, and it's the way to get the true ending. Throughout the journey, you interact and get at least one full heart out of the women that you get the option to dance with near the end of the game, like I mentioned earlier. But if you keep pushing through towards the end and never go back in time with the balloons, your dances with them only end up being just okay. What you gotta do now is go on these pretty obscure quests back to the previous pages and do some more trial and error present giveaways in order to get even more hearts with them and make your final dance even more spectacular. To give the game credit, these side quests are pretty elaborate, but you have no guidance on how to start them, so just keep going and figuring things out, or just go on GameFAQs, I don't care. Eventually, you find your way to the big castle that houses the princess. But oh no, she's sick! Another big elaborate point-and-click quest later, you get access to the Deku Tree's tears, which are able to miraculously cure her of her illness. But it's clear that this sickness was no freak accident, with one of the servants obviously being behind all this. Throughout the journey, there are these few obnoxious blondes that are blocking your path, this pesky rich kid and this pompous prince, the latter of which frames you for crimes in the castle. What a convincing set of disguises. And then you get a classic break out of jail scene, I love it. But the mission is clear, we gotta get back to the princess. Now at this point of the game, I don't know if you had the 3 characters based on the Wizard of Oz sacrificing themselves so Tingle can achieve his ultimate goal on your bingo card, but it happens. It happens to all 3 of them. Okay. I wasn't about to go for full completion here. I wasn't gonna romance every single girl on offer. I don't got that kind of time. Of the 5 options, I went for the train girl that initially barely makes an impact on the story. Listen, the glasses, the extreme hyperfixation over something trivial like trains, ready to go off in extreme detail to anybody that would listen. She's a YouTuber in the making, dare I say, I'm smitten. Azusa, my beloved, stay with me forever and talk about trains. You are the coal that keeps my steam engine running. I'm sorry about that. And with her heart finally mine, it is time for the grand finale dance. That little blonde twerp keeps trying to make a move on my girls, but I won't let that happen. Check out these moves. Oh yeah. 5 dances later, Tingle can finally get with the princess and go back home. But wait, no. It turns out the princess is fake, and your friends are alive! Oh my god. The evil witch steals your princess, and now it's time to get her back. For real this time. Oh, I don't know if I like this. I mean, I guess it is a boss fight. You just keep pelting her with pheromone shots over and over and over again until she crumbles. And no, I'm not lying. The game says pheromone shots. I know it's a fan translation, but I would assume that's what they intended. It's pheromone shots. We're Galgun up in here now. And before you know it, the princess is saved. Justice is finally served with the witch and the annoying prince now imprisoned for their crimes, and it is finally time for Tingle to go back home. One final dance with your true love is all it takes to open the portal, but I don't want to leave. I want to stay in this book world with all of these characters that I now love. And I mean, let's be real. Tingle barely makes any appearances in the Zelda games after this. Would he even be missed? Why would I want to go back? Easy choice, you don't even have to ask. I will now stay with these characters. The credits roll featuring a charming Where Are They Now segment for all of the characters, and that ends ripened Tingle's balloon trip of love. Oh, sorry, I'm lying. Barkle then pees on the book that you're in first, and now the game's over. Now with these games surely selling dozens of copies, of course a 3rd game has to be in development. Right? Not much is known about what the future was going to hold with this sub-series, but apparently a horror game was being considered for the next genre, which would have been amazing. And then you could have called it Newly Plucked, Tingle's Spooky House, and it would be based off of Friday the 13th or something, I don't know. Chibi Robo, Captain Rainbow, Dylan's Rolling Western, Tingle. These creative minds behind these franchises have a really bad habit of making these intriguing stories and fascinating worlds, only for the universe to not buy the games and then remind me that no one else cares and I'm not allowed to love things. After contributing a bunch of unique games, as well as helping out with some Kirby titles in recent years, Vanpool has sadly closed its doors on May 31st, 2023. The Tingle series only lasted 2 main games, but if you're interested in experiencing easily the weirdest things Nintendo has ever done, Rosyrupy Land and Balloon Trip of Love are must-plays. And if this truly is the end, Tingle floating off into the sunset with the love of his life, couldn't ask for a better ending than that. This pair of Zelda games is a whole lot better than this pair of Zelda games, and no, I'm not kidding. So yeah, we got the Zelda games out of the way, we got the Tingle games out of the way as well. All that's left are the multiplayer games, right? Triforce Heroes, Four Swords Adventures, games like that. But even Tingle's Balloon Fight has 2 to 4 player multiplayer. That's kind of surreal. Guess I gotta call some friends. Historically, The Legend of Zelda and multiplayer don't really go hand in hand. Or so you might initially think. Now obviously we're going to be highlighting the main multiplayer Zelda games today, the multiple forms of Four Swords as well as Triforce Heroes, but there are actually more attempts to get multiple people together for a Zelda game than even I initially thought. At its simplest, we have a game like Link's Crossbow Training, which has a 2-player sequential score attack mode, a pretty great way to extend some life into this 45-minute long game. Hyrule Warriors and the sequel, Age of Calamity, both feature 2-player split-screen co-op, which is really cool if you enjoy the games, but just wish the frame rate was a little bit worse. It is split-screen only though, you can't connect 2 switches together, and that's kind of annoying, so the final result is a pretty reduced range of vision, but honestly, it's a Warriors game. We're not looking to strategize these massive plans of attack here, it's just a means to button mash your way through, I don't know, turning the completion time down from 1,000 hours to somewhere close to 800, I don't know. Big shout out to the Wii U version of the first game, actually, since both players are given their own screen thanks to the gamepad. That's sick. Definitive Edition on Switch does offer some quality of life enhancements, so I think that still ends up being the better version overall, but hey, let's put a feather in the Wii U's cap, it needs as many of those as it can get. And besides, Nintendo Land's Legend of Zelda Battle Quest probably wins as far as the Wii U Zelda co-op experiences go. The TV user gets a sword and shield with the Wii Remote and nunchuck, and the gamepad user gets a bow and arrow. It's awesome. It's so cool. Not enough people really highlight just how cool Nintendo Land is. Like, oh my god, the multiplayer experiences in that game are still incredible. Metroid Blast is like one of the best experiences the Wii U ever produced, and it was a launch title. That is 2 feathers in the console's cap back to back. I hope Nintendo enjoys that, I expect a thank you. And even Cadence of Hyrule has a full-blown co-op mode, either through the story or progressing through a randomly generated world map. There is a menu option to play the game without sticking to the music, and in this mode, it's actually extremely difficult since both characters moving gets every enemy to move at the same time, making it really hard to plan out each screen. Not a fan there, but keep the rhythm mode on, divide and conquer, it is a damn solid co-op experience. By the way, isn't it crazy that this game is even real? Like an indie-developed Zelda game that acts as a pseudo-sequel to Crypt of the Necrodancer, it features a badass soundtrack, fantastic sprite work, substantial DLC with more characters and playstyles, by far one of the craziest Nintendo products of all time. And to prove to you that I'm serious about this whole playing every single multiplayer component of every single Zelda game thing, I even went ahead and got a full 4-player game of Tingle's balloon fight for the DS going. That was unheard of. I found 3 other people willing to open up their DS, access the download play menu option, and play the game with me for more than 10 minutes, likely one of the only times in history this has ever taken place. I mean, if that doesn't convince you to stay around and subscribe, I don't know what will. So what, does that mean A Link Between Worlds technically counts as having multiplayer? Like there's a Street Pass feature that pits you against Shadow Links, decked out however the Street Pass player would like, rewarding you with rupees if you can take them down. It is cool, it does require another player to make work, so it is kinda multiplayer. There's even a whopping 50 achievements specifically for this mode, all won by completing battles under specific conditions. And if you finish all of those, you can then take down a super boss in Gramps. One of the greatest hidden moments in the Zelda franchise, because I didn't even know this was a thing until I was working on this video. Like, wow, this is a thing. You can fight against the grandpa in a Zelda game. It just takes playing a bunch of Street Pass battles. Like, wow, that's so crazy. Watch out for Gramps, the true eater of worlds and destroyer of all things. Ganon doesn't stand a chance. Honestly, this really just makes me further miss the pure concept of Street Pass, but let's be real here. Calling this quote-unquote multiplayer is a bit of a stretch, because technically, if we go by that logic, nearly every classic Zelda game on Nintendo Switch Online becomes multiplayer, since you can get a friend to just watch and clap along as you fail yet another Ocarina of Time speedrun attempt. And yes, I would be remiss as to not also bring attention to all of the classic Zelda games that have been modded to include co-op. From the NES original to Breath of the Wild, so many Zelda games actually do have multiplayer now, they're just fan projects. If you're willing and able to partake in, you know, subjectively illegal activities to get there, these are pretty good times, even if these games were clearly not built for it. Welcome to the third and final part of my Handheld Zelda Retrospective. We've taken a look at the core Zelda games, we've taken a look at the weird Tingle games, all that's left, the multiplayer titles. I understand that not every multiplayer game is handheld exclusive, I totally get that, most of them are, but there's one major game that's not, but listen, okay? When else am I gonna talk about Four Swords Adventures, alright? Cut me some slack. Those Tingle games are really something else, man. It really goes to show that not enough people played these games because, for one, they're really good and you should play them, but also I went through that entire video and genuinely forgot the fact that there is a Tingle microgame in the Japanese version only of WarioWare DIY Showcase for WiiWare, and nobody yelled at me about it. Bunch of fake Tingle fans in the audience, I swear. An often forgotten element of the DS Zelda games, Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks, both contained competitive multiplayer, both locally and online. Well, it used to have online, but And these modes are fine. Phantom Hourglass is a 1v1 mode. One player is Link, the other takes control of 3 Phantoms, and those roles keep swapping once a Phantom bludgeons Link in the back of the head. The goal is to avoid detection, maybe grab a power-up if you can, collect power gems, and bring them back to your base. Link can see the Phantom's locations when holding a gem, the Phantoms can always see Link's location unless he's chilling in a safe zone. You throw in the play control differences of having direct control of Link and only being able to command the Phantoms with the drawn lines, it makes for a decent time, a little bit of asynchronous multiplayer there. There's a lot of on-the-fly decision-making that can change depending on what map you choose. Conceptually, great. The issue though, God, these touch controls are so cumbersome. So much of your stupid hand is blocking the stupid screen. It was already annoying in the base game, but when you're trying to implement those quick twitch maneuvers while trying to work with your general strategies, unfortunately, it is a little more annoying than fun. And that annoyance is still present in Spirit Tracks, however, much like the single-player adventure found within, it is simply so much better. Now, up to 4 Links can run around these arenas at the same time, grabbing as many power gems as possible, and that's it. Just go all out. The Phantoms are back, but now they're CPU controlled. So you got them, you got stage obstacles, and even other Links can all screw up your plans and make you drop gems. And that's it, man. All strategy is thrown out the window. It is simply a mad dash to get a higher score than the other Links. While the controls are still kind of frustrating to deal with, the gameplay loop is way more conducive to the madness this whole battle is about. Plus, look how happy they are. I can't be mad at this, look at them. The mere idea that Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks have battle modes is just surreal. It's the only, quote, mainline game in this roughly 40-year-long franchise history to go, oh yeah, you know what, bring a friend along so you can kick their ass. You just wouldn't typically assume that a standard Zelda game is going to be ready for more than one person at any given time. Which finally gets us to the main topic of today's video. Hello, my name is AntDude, and I love taking forever to get to the point. For the vast majority of people out there, the whole idea of multiplayer Zelda games boils down to only 4 titles. We got 4 Swords on the Game Boy Advance, 4 Swords Adventures for the GameCube, 4 Swords Anniversary Edition for DSiWare, and Triforce Heroes for the 3DS. And outside of probably the Oracle games, these all go down as the least discussed games in the entire franchise. Which is kind of weird to think about when you say it out loud, but it does make sense. To really enjoy these games to the fullest, you gotta get some friends along and have them agree to play with you. And I get it, making friends is tough, people kind of suck, but on the other hand, The Legend of Zelda is eternal, so you can see the conflict there. Have you ever played the Super Nintendo classic The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past and thought to yourself, this is good, but I just wish Link audibly yelled all the time? Well, this GBA port is just the thing for you. The Game Boy Advance always had this moniker of being a handheld Super Nintendo. We got versions of all-time classics like Yoshi's Island, Donkey Kong Country, Final Fantasy, with the selling point always being, hey, it's the game you all know and love, but now it's some new additions as well as it's in the palm of your hands. Isn't that cool? Give us money. Sure is nice going back to all these games nowadays with these bright-ass color palettes that were meant to compensate for the non-backlit screen on the original GBA. God, Donkey Kong Country is kind of unsettling now, and that mentality is no different with LOZLTTP. Outside of the constant annoying yelling, which yes, oh my god, it's very annoying. This is still the seminal Legend of Zelda experience. There are some differences with the Super Nintendo version if you want to dive into the finer minutia, but of course, what we're here to talk about today, bundled in with the original adventure is a whole new game, The Legend of Zelda: 4 Swords. Now, back in the day, you'd have to get at least 2 Game Boy Advances, each with a copy of A Link to the Past plus 4 Swords for the Game Boy Advance family of systems, and the appropriate amount of link cables. Get it all hooked up, pray that none of the cables come loose, and then boom, you're playing some multiplayer Zelda in the mid-2000s. In more recent times, you're better off loading up an emulator of choice to play with people online, like that's super cool that has existed for years actually, but there's an even better option now because you can do the same thing on the Nintendo Switch's NSO Plus expansion pack service. I love that. 4 Swords, an amazing mirror multiplayer accessible for the first time ever on console? And they want how much for the PS5 Pro? Bro, I love the Switch so much. Deep in this mysterious sanctuary in the kingdom of Hyrule rests a blade known as the Four Sword that has sealed away the evil wind mage, Vati. Zelda senses that the seal is weakening, and before they can do anything about it, Vati appears and kidnaps her. Link then draws the sword, splitting him into 4 differently colored links, and now they must combine their powers to save Zelda and seal Vati once again. It's like almost the same exact plot as Kirby and the Amazing Mirror. Really don't gotta think much when it comes to coming up with multiplayer stories, I guess. Like, remember the Mario Bros game and the Mario Advance titles that introduced a Blue Mario and Yellow Mario? Dude, who are these guys? And where have they been since? I also like that Kirby has shown up multiple times in this retrospective. Like, I can't help it, man. He's the most influential Nintendo franchise. I don't make the rules. And once again, shout out to Vati, by the way. It is a really nice change of pace to have him as the main villain when he shows up in Minish Cap, but actually, Four Swords is his debut. Fun little fact right there. He's just a purple Link, and his final form is an early Kirby final boss. It's great. So literally, the very first thing you're greeted to when starting this adventure is a level select screen. That's very different, of course. No grand sweeping overworld, no villages with NPCs, no typical dungeon progression. You have 4 areas to choose from, with the grassy sea of trees, the icy Talus Cave, the fiery Death Mountain, and the tutorial zone, the Chambers of Insight. Arguably something that is very crucial to fully understanding some of the game's mechanics, else you stand here struggling for 10 minutes before learning from an online guide that you can clink 2 swords together to spark a fire. What the fuck? And there you go, you just jump in, you just pick whatever you want and you go. And yes, this is the very first instance of the word talus in a Zelda game. It only took 14 years for Breath of the Wild to let us know what a talus even is, but here you go. There's a fun fact for you. And once you choose a stage, you are thrown into a series of floors filled with puzzles and items, with your goal to work together with the other links to clear the area out, eventually find a key, and move on. There's nothing here that's new for seasoned Zelda players here mechanically, but what Four Swords lacks in originality, it makes up for with
the real superpower of teamwork!
You got hand carts that need 2 links to operate, some gaps that you have to cross by chucking someone over it, so many blocks that one link is simply too weak and baby to push on his own. Thankfully, you got more of them to come through and pick up the slack. And the bosses require some coordination between the different players in order to hit specific spots that only one specific link can hit. Otherwise, you're just gonna die. You're just gonna have a bad time. But there's also a little odor of competition as well, with the game keeping track of who got the most rupees at the end of the stage, giving you just enough time to call your partners a bad word before syncing back up to continue the adventure. Or, you know, you could just deal with them rage quitting. The only thing in the game that sucks is like you got this a-hole rupee wraith enemy that you can summon and it just ruins your life for a little bit. God, he sucks. He just floats there and takes a bunch of rupees away from you and you can't attack him. You just gotta deal with it. You can push him off into a partner, which just makes it more annoying for everybody. Like, I don't get it. It sucks. It sucks. But yeah, overall, it's a fine enough game, I guess. Nothing really groundbreaking here. It's mostly just kinda neat that you're playing a bare bones Zelda experience with somebody else. And considering this game predates the Minish Cap, it's also nice to see the origins of this sorta 16-bit Toon Link art style. Hell, there's even a new item in this game, the Nat Hat, that basically just acts like Ezlo in the following game. That's cool. We even got throwbacks to Bow Wow from Link's Awakening and the magnetic glove from Oracle of Seasons, and this time, it doesn't burn your eardrums while using it. Hell yeah. Not hell yeah. Four Swords plays, looks, and sounds great. Until everybody has max health, which then triggers a 2x rupee multiplier that lasts until someone gets hit, and it's accompanied by I don't know, it sounds like an AI-generated Super Mario Bros. Star theme. I'm so uncomfortable with this. You clear the 3 areas, you unlock Vati's Palace, which is pretty much the predecessor to Minish Cap's Palace of Winds. Loved that dungeon, so this was cool to see. And you battle the multi-form final boss against the quote-unquote fierce wind mage, and he's pathetic, man. It's a really good thing they gave this dude a second shot, because this first showing ain't it. Vati is resealed into the Four Sword, Link returns to normal, and then, yeah, now, do it again, I guess. Sure, you may have beaten the game, but you don't truly beat it until you do the whole campaign an additional 2 times. Wow, the Sonic Heroes comparisons really run deep. I mean, I guess it's kind of worth going through this game more than once. Like, levels are actually randomly generated, so there's a strong chance that you won't deal with the same experience more than once. Plus, you go from unlocking silver keys to gold keys and eventually hero keys by beating the stages multiple times over. Ooh, you don't gotta do that. You do not gotta do that whatsoever. The levels end up being like slightly harder, but it's really not worth the effort. But if you do bring more people along, maybe it is. There are different stages catered to the number of people that you bring along. So really, for a game that takes like less than an hour to beat, you can get multiple hours out of this if you truly care. But for me, once was enough, and I likely won't return to it. The Legend of Zelda 4 Swords is a neat novelty, and it is cool that it is finally accessible on the Switch, but there is just not enough depth there to warrant those additional playthroughs. As expected, Kirby clears in this area. Full completion simply brings you bragging rights. Sweet. Now you can say you did it. Maybe now Reggie will be my friend. But by beating it only once, like a sane person, you can actually hop back into A Link to the Past and take on a brand new side quest, Lumberjack's Riddles, from Q Bumpkin, a brand new NPC. They called him Bumpkin, huh? Definitely had a rough childhood. He gives you a short riddle for some animal or item that he wants. You go and get it, you bring it back to him, rinse and repeat until he's done. One of the riddle answers is Kookman. The one and only Kookman, he's back. Who could ever forget about Kookman? You remember, right? It can display millions of polygons. Yeah, that guy! Doing 10 of the riddles would give Link the Hurricane Spin, a more powerful spin attack where he doesn't shut the hell up. It's great, but more importantly, the reason why you would play this in the first place, there is the Palace of the Four Sword, a brand new LTTP dungeon. Inside are 4 pathways, each filled with tough puzzles, tougher enemies, including the like-likes, which aren't even in the base game, and I love them. Everybody loves those stupid like-likes. Their paths end off with harder versions of 4 of the standard bosses, eventually all culminating in a pretty tough battle with 4 Shadow Links. It's definitely a challenge, but before long, the first new dungeon in A Link to the Past in so many years has been completed, and oh. And then the credits roll. Okay, there is a quest log during the credits now, so sick, dude. The best takeaway from all this is that 4 Sword does succeed at being sort of supplementary to the LTTP port experience, and it's really cool that the 4 Sword as an item shows up in Minish Cap, but 4 Sword itself, the actual adventure? Nintendo did release an enhanced version of 4 Swords for the DSiWare a few years afterwards, but in between then, we're gonna take a bit of a GameCube detour with 4 Swords Adventures, what is considered to be the worst selling game in the entire Zelda franchise. Oh my god. About a year and a half later, we got the Legend of Zelda 4 Swords Adventures for the GameCube, aka 4 Swords Plus in Japan. Kinda dig that name a little better. Finally, the 4 Swords experience on a console, so now you don't have to worry about bringing multiple Game Boys and link cables to the party to have a good time. Yeah, it's worse now actually. What's that? You want a 4-player game going on here? Okay, I got you. 1 GameCube, 1 copy of LOZ FSA, 4 Game Boy Advances, each with a GBA to GameCube link cable. Awesome, that's it, that's it. That's it, come on, that ain't that bad. That's so much plastic. So, like basically everyone else, it wasn't until years later where I managed to get a proper 4-player game going as God and Shigeru Zelda intended. The game does finally allow for just a single player to go on the adventure, and if you go about it that way, you can use just a standard controller, which is nice. It kind of pops up a fake GBA screen when needed. That's cute. Don't know why that feature is single player exclusive, but okay. But come on now, you want the full experience here. It's 4 Swords after all. Why not go the extra mile? Perhaps you go the route of getting 5 GameCubes, 4 of them with GBA players, you get 5 TVs to hook them up to, along with a GameCube controller for all of them, and then boom. Easy $1,000 plus way to experience 4 Swords Adventures in its peak. I understand why this is the worst selling game now. I am once again advocating for the benefits of emulation here because once again, Dolphin wins. Popular GameCube emulator Dolphin actually has integration with the popular GBA emulator MGBA, resulting in allowing the players to view both screens at the same time while using any controller they choose, and there's online play, making this the ultimate way to experience FSA nowadays if you can't force 3 of your closest friends and enemies to play in the same room with you. I mean, like, come on now, this is just cool as hell, right? You can even load up Wind Waker and play with the Tingle tuner with ease. That's so cool that you can do this. And obviously this extends far beyond Zelda. You have easy access to the Sonic Advance Chow Garden shenanigans too while playing Sonic Adventure 2. Hell yeah. For this video, I did get to have the authentic experience by connecting a bunch of GBAs to a single GameCube, but man, using a GBA SP as a console controller for an extended period of time is a bit painful on the wrists. Really, Dolphin is the best way to go. Deep in this mysterious sanctuary in the Kingdom of Hyrule rests a blade known as the Four Sword that has sealed away the evil mage, Vaati. Wait, is this deja vu? Increased production values and one long scrolling text box aside, it is a fairly similar premise, just now, Zelda also calls upon 6 maidens for assistance on top of Link, and we also get a sudden Dark Link appearance who seals away the maidens and Zelda in dark crystals. Oh no! So now, Link grabs the Four Sword, splits into 4 copies, Vaati shows up, etc, etc. Time to yell expletives at your friends. Ganon even shows up in this one near the end, haha. Turns out they were trying to bring him back this whole time. Oh my goodness, heaven forbid we continue committing to the new guy. He's not even that tough in this game. Only took me like 5 minutes to kill him and you just slash him like crazy. Like he's super easy. Like, man, give Vaati the ball. He can do something there, damn it. At its core, Four Swords Adventures is basically the same gameplay loop as GBA Four Swords, but a whole lot bigger. This time you got 8 full areas with 3 levels each, the third being somewhat a more traditional dungeon. You got towns and NPCs that you'll run across occasionally, sometimes with quests that you will tackle right then and there. Sometimes there are so many more enemies on screen at any given time, it's just like nonsensical combat here. Honestly, I'm all for it. Much grander boss battles, they're really fun, introducing a bunch of brand new creatures that toe the line between original and familiar in a way that both works in single player as well as co-op, thanks to how easy it is to now split your squad up at any given time, which you're gonna want to remember that point for a little later on. I got some Triforce opinions for you there. There's so much more variety in the landscapes, like the typical grasslands and mountains, but there's also the Lost Woods, a mysterious desert, and regularly shifting your attention to the GBA screen, allowing some links to see things exclusive to them, while the rest are still up above ground, doing whatever the hell. Who cares? That's them, not you. It is literally just what the Wii U, an entire console, was selling its entire gimmick as, and they didn't revisit it on that system, but thank God Nintendo funded Devil's Third instead. And if you do tackle this game by yourself, well, good news, the game introduces the formation system. You will control all 4 links at the same time, and you can quickly swap between 4 different formations with the flick of a stick, and easily split up and control just one link, while the others are like, okay, fine, not like I wanted to be on this adventure anyway, I'm not even that mad. They look so grumpy just sitting there. And this makes a single player experience relatively enjoyable. However, the thing that really sucks about this is that if you pick up an item, all 4 links in your squad are required to hold that one item, as opposed to 4 player where each player can hold something different, requiring communication to keep things moving smoothly. In single player, for example, if you want the boomerang that you had earlier, but you got the bow and arrow now, you gotta backtrack to where you left the boomerang, you gotta lose the bow and arrow, and hope that you don't need it back for the rest of the stage, otherwise you gotta backtrack some more. Like, God! This game would be so much better if you can just L and R button your way through the different items. This ruins the pace so much for the way that I guess you're not even supposed to play this game in the first place. This goes doubly for the brand new temporary leveled up items, so like you'll find a great fairy, you can throw like a bow at it and then you'll get a level 2 bow back, but you can still place the level 2 bow somewhere else, and if you want to backtrack specifically to the level 2 bow, you gotta go to where you specifically left that one. Not every bow in the stage levels up, just that one. Like, oh my god, this is bad design. This doesn't absolutely ruin the single player experience, but it does make the multiplayer experience that much better. All you gotta do is say, hey Jimmy, hey stupid, give me the level 2 bow. That's it. That's all you gotta do. It's way better. We don't like Jimmy in this game anyway. But ultimately, no matter how you play it, FSA is way better than the original FS. I even like that it still looks like a higher fidelity GBA game. Games like this at the time didn't show up super often, so while it's obviously less impressive than a full 3D game, it is definitely one of those stands up to the test of time things, something that Nintendo is all too familiar with after Wind Waker. However, the graphical style and once again the reliance on multiplayer, it was definitely all a gamble that did not work out for the company. Once again, the least selling Zelda game of all time, not even cracking 1 million copies. Dude, okay, imagine this, right? Sonic Gems Collection outsold this game, okay? All I can take from this is that people yearn for Sonic R more than Four Swords Adventures, alright? That's the only logical conclusion I got. Even still, Four Swords Adventures succeeds where the original Four Swords failed. This actually feels more like a Zelda game that you just so happen to be playing with others. Single player, it's not great, and obviously it's gonna lack story depth compared to like Twilight Princess, and if anything else, the game is also very long. Like, it's an unnecessarily long adventure. 8 worlds with 3 levels each, like this goes on for quite a while. There's not enough variety to make it that interesting. This game goes on for a few hours longer than it needs to be. But if you do find the time to play with others, you are in for one of the better co-op experiences Nintendo has ever produced. Adventuring is really fun, puzzle solving with others is pretty satisfying, there's still that light odor of competition with the rupee rankings at the end of the stages, and there's even a handful of mini-games that you can play over at the Tingle Tower. You got horse racing, cocoa gathering, all volleying, and there's even an entirely separate fight to the death mode with Shadow Battle. All 4 links can just fight until only one remains. This is what Zelda's been missing this whole time. They really did try as much as they could with this idea, and it's wild that in the 20 plus years since release, it has not been ported or attempted again in this style. Triforce Heroes is really its own thing. There is definitely room for something more along the lines of Four Swords Adventures 2 nowadays. And man, if this truly is the worst selling Zelda game of all time, imagine how many people got to experience the Japanese and Korean exclusive Navi Trackers mode. In this mode, up to 4 links will run around a map hunting for different pirates, sometimes participating in some minigames. It's pretty straightforward, but again, a shocking amount of effort went into this. You got a full 3D Wind Waker styled opening, plenty of original sprite work for the GBA screen that is not in Minish Cap or Original Four Swords, and a ton of voice acting for Tetra on the TV screen. I'm assuming there is such a reliance on foreign language and voice acting, that was enough for Nintendo to not localize this mode with the rest. And that's a shame, because like another fun Nintendo fact here, the original inspiration for this mode was the first game Eiji Aonuma directed, Marvelous, for the Super Nintendo, or specifically a Satellaview re-release, BS Marvelous, Time Athletic, which had a real-time narration system that guided you towards stamps, which, yeah, is basically exactly what Navi Trackers would become. The game even originally had Marvelous characters in it. I don't even know who she is, but that's really cool. Dude, this may not mean much in the grand scheme of things, but any reference to some niche Nintendo backlog stuff like that, I love it so much. I have no idea who this woman is, but she was alive for like 5 seconds, and that was a great 5 seconds. Now let's fast forward a few more years. It's 2011 and the 3DS is currently in there. Oh god, we're falling. Oh my god, the 3DS is falling so hard. I can't believe Steel Diver isn't saving us. Phase. It is also the Zelda series' 25th anniversary, E3 celebration, orchestrated music, Ocarina of Time is getting a remake on the 3DS, Skyward Sword is happening, giving us the most iconic Miyamoto moment of all time. Link's Awakening is being ported to the Nintendo 3DS Virtual Console, and we got a brand new Four Swords game for DSiWare available for only a few months, but hey, it was free.
The 4-player cooperative Legend of Zelda Four Swords that we're going to make available to all of you as a free download.
Am I really crazy for thinking that this was going to be a new game? It wasn't until the trailer when it was revealed to be a sort of remaster of the GBA game. That's an odd marketing call, but whatever, it's free. That's like complaining about Jump Rope Challenge. I can only care so much, this bunny is indicative of a darker time. You know what's really weird too with the limited release strategy for this game specifically? It actually got a second release wave. It was first available from late September 2011 to February of 2012, and then after A Link Between Worlds release, it was available once again for free on the eShop for, and I'm not kidding here, 3 days in early 2014. 3 days. What? The Legend of Zelda Four Swords Anniversary Edition. So yes, this is more or less the same game as the GBA version, but with a few core changes. For one, you can play in single player now. Cool! This mode limits you to 2 links that you can control independently, or have them follow you FSA style. And yeah, it just works. Anything that requires 2 links to function, the other link will suddenly grow a brain and work with you. It's nice. They're gaining sentience. And wow, oh my god, look at that! Each link can hold a different item. God, this fixes things so much. Adventures is really being held back from true greatness with this one change alone, I'm telling you. With the move to the DS, of course, we also have more screen space. That's really nice. There is better quality music and sound effects. That's cool. A functional bottom screen with an always visible radar. This is clearly like the superior version of the game, right? Like unquestionably, but there's more. With no A Link to the Past to stop and swap content with this time around, is there any new benefit to killing Vati at the end of this adventure? Well, there's the Hero's Trial, which is a tough final challenge, as well as the Realm of Memories. Inside are 3 doors, each containing 3 stages, all based on classic Zelda games. You got Hyrule's Castle exterior, interior, and the Lost Woods from A Link to the Past, Lower Koholint Island, Tail Cave, and Tal Tal Heights from Link's Awakening, and the Central Overworld, Lost Woods and Graveyard, and Level 1 from the original NES Legend of Zelda. Each stage has a modified art style, we got music ported from the source game, and completing all of these will give you the Master Sword. This is one of the coolest things ever. I didn't think the Zelda franchise was really dialing into the fan service until Hyrule Warriors on the Wii U, but nah, this was happening too, and I totally missed it. I don't know how the knowledge of these stages went by me for well over a decade. How many people have gotten to experience this? This is really cool. It's like the Gramps fight in Link Between Worlds all over again. I somehow missed some of the greatest bits of fan service in Zelda history, and for this, it's locked behind a DSiWare game that you couldn't even access for the majority of time the eShop was still around. Oh wait, I'm sorry, except for those 3 random days in 2014. This company drives me insane sometimes. A lot of times. Four Swords Adventures is still the best so far, but Anniversary shows that there's a lot of potential with this idea. So now we give it a few more years, wait for a new console to come out with the 3DS, and we give it one more go with The Legend of Zelda Triforce Heroes. And this is now the second worst selling game in the entire franchise. Oh my god, people don't care. You see, this is another one of those Diddy Kong's Quest versus Diddy's Conquest scenarios here. It's not Triforce, one word, like the triangular object of legend. It is Triforce, 2 words, since the whole point of the game is a trio of links forcing their way through whatever stands in their path. Haha, and it's on the 3DS, Triforce 3DS. Dude! Either single player with 2 dolls that you can swap control with at any time, and they have the most horrifying faces of all time. It's like if a shy guy were robbed of all of its soul. Or with 2 other actual humans. I forced them to play with me. You can go on this brand new handheld adventure. Do you want to bring just one other person along? So you got a whole 2-player with 1 doll situation going on? No, sorry, idiot, can't do that. It's either 1 player or 3 players. Those are your only options. You cannot play this game with only 2 people. What? You could have also gone online and gotten 2 strangers to join in with you, but then you're only able to communicate with these emotes? Oh god, that sounds dreadful. All while the Wii U was flatlining and Nintendo fans were anxiously awaiting the releases of Ziplash and Ultra Smash, it is really no surprise that this would go on to become the second worst selling game in the franchise. I just can't get over it. I cannot believe that. That's insane. I mean, I guess it makes sense in the grand scheme of things, but still, that's crazy. This game is actually really good too, but it did not stand a chance. It's the game where Toon Link can wear a dress and they reference LTTP's pink-haired Link. Triforce Heroes deserved better. There was that brief period of time where you were able to get like Yokai Watch and Happy Home Designer for $5, and this was there along with it, man. Like, everyone complains about Nintendo games never getting discounts, right? But no, for a good period of time, Triforce Heroes was $5, and I still don't think people were buying it. Oh my god. Alright now, brace yourself. We actually got an original storyline here, introducing the Kingdom of Hytopia, home to Princess Styla, who was beloved by everybody. Well, except for one person, the evil Drablands witch, Lady Maud, who specifically attacks Styla's fashion sense by gifting her an irremovable ugly gray bodysuit. The horror. Completely humiliated, she locks herself in her bedroom, causing chaos in Hytopia, and for her father, King Tuft. A call has been issued for any available hero to come and save the kingdom, specifically a Triforce hero, haha, being one with pointy ears, epic sideburns, and side-parted hair. Epic sideburns? Really epic? Epic sideburns, huh? Okay. Odd localization right off the bat, okay. It's your outfit, it's a bit, well, isn't it adorbs? Adorbs? Oh god, okay, this fills me with such a unique pain I don't see very often. Link just said adorbs. This man doesn't talk, but he said adorbs. They're totally gonna say like, Link's outfit is on fleek, aren't they? I'm gonna, ooh man. Alright, squad goals, I guess. Yeah, if that was painful to hear, I apologize. It was painful to write down too. Of course, now it is up to you to claim the title of the Triforce Hero, overcome all of the Drabland challenges that lay out before you, and look fabulous while doing so. It's a brand new kingdom filled with brand new characters, including Madame Couture's cat. I love them, as well as a relatively brand new style that looks really good. Not only is this game clearly built off of the Link Between Worlds engine from a few years prior, but actually, this is the same Link from that adventure. Like, I guess after saving Lorule, you had nothing else better to do, so you took part in this fashion contest, I guess. Okay, I'm all for it. But like, isn't Link Between Worlds considered Link to the Past 2? So does that make Triforce Heroes technically Link to the Past 3? Oh, once again, the number 3 is there again, oh my god. But okay, if that's too much of a stretch for you, consider this. Triforce Heroes is the only Zelda game on the 3DS that is more or less completely original. This console is filled with a bunch of remasters, ports, we got a sequel, Picross, can't forget about Twilight Princess Picross. It was this game specifically where the creators were able to flex their creative muscle to the fullest. And it is something that Nintendo didn't give us with another top-down Zelda game again until 2024's Echoes of Wisdom. All I'm saying here is, Triforce Heroes represents quite a weird spot in Zelda history. Now, the structure of this adventure remains pretty similar to the 4 Swords games before it. We got 8 areas with 4 levels each. Green Link, Blue Link, and Red Link drop in. Purple Link, bye-bye, see ya stupid, you didn't get the invite. And it is up to you 3 to work together to solve any puzzles and defeat any enemies that stand in your way. You've heard this all already before in this video. But the 2 main differences outside of going from 4 links to 3 is the general smoothness of control. The Link Between Worlds engine putting in excellent work to make a game that, god, this may be the smoothest any Link has ever felt in this entire franchise. It plays so well, and there is a much stronger reliance on working together with your partners at all times. There's a brand new totem mechanic, where you stack up on each other's legs to reach a box of cereal that's on too high of a ledge. Everyone's items have to be used in tandem way more often, like making water pillars tall enough for a bow user to strike a boss. I love that. And instead of just chucking every Link over a ledge, you have to chuck over the correct Link so you can pull the others over with the boomerang, stuff like that. And every Link can also put on a cute little outfit that sometimes alters some of your stats, like the rate of finding hearts during the stages. And hell, this whole costume thing, I love it to death. I love when games give you costumes. However, this does add a bit of unnecessary grinding to the mix. You see, stages will give you materials that you can then bring back to Madame Couture's shop, and there is no way you can afford every new costume on your first attempt. So, if you want, say, Link in a cheerleader outfit, and damn it, who doesn't, you're gonna have to work for it. And that's doubly so for single player, since typically a level will give you 3 treasure chests once you complete it, 1 for each Link, but in single player, the other 2 just go away, so you kinda get penalized for doing single player. God. And on top of that, like, dude, every level has 3 additional challenges that you can tackle after the initial completion. That jumps the initial level count of 32 to 128. And the game keeps separate records of your solo runs versus your full co-op runs, so technically full completion is doing all 128 missions twice! Oh god. And then you got the Den of Trials, a 9th area that features 40 floors and rewards you with the Fierce Deity outfit. Oh my god, that's so awesome. Oh dude, a Linebeck costume. That's so crazy. The fan service is so strong, you almost forget that guy was an absolute tool bag. If you got friends that are willing to commit to this entire quest with you just for some virtual fabric, then you guys are friends for life. Nothing will ever tear that bond. Dude, just imagine the 3 of you rocking the Timeless Tunic outfit. Like, oh man, this is so retro. You see, it's cool because when you put it on, the music actually goes 8-bit. Wow, this is crazy, man. Nostalgia overload. But, here's the thing. Here's the reason why I think so many people have told me over the years that this game is just flat out not good. Single player. Oh god, it's not good. It is super easy to swap between the 3 links by tapping them on the touchscreen, sure, but like I said, there is a stronger reliance on collaboration than ever before. So, doing your typical puzzle solving, but also needing quick reflexes to regularly tap the touchscreen and reorient yourself in a second so you don't take damage, it's not fun. It would be different if all the links were on a single screen like in 4 Swords Adventures, but no, sometimes camera jumping is involved, and it really sucks on the eyes. You see, I just played through Federation Force for the 3DS nostalgia video, and so much of that time I was like, god, this either sucks and it takes too long when I'm by myself, or this sucks but it sucks with 3 other people now in co-op. Here, thankfully, I guess, it's just a single player. Like, it's mostly just a single player that sucks. I was really worried that these co-op designed with a single player option games would just be a complete annoyance from start to finish, but while the single player Triforce Heroes experience is easily one of the most frustrating games in the entire Zelda franchise, if you can get a full squad of people with you and you can easily communicate with them, This game is genuinely great. And sorry, Nintendo, playing with randos online and just praying they understand what I mean when I spam the cheerleader emote may even be a worse time than single player. Like, man, why? Just put this on a console. Just put this on a console. Listen, I get it. Four Swords Adventures is also great for different reasons, but Triforce Heroes is just better at what this sort of side series is trying to accomplish. That level of teamwork and slight customization with the costume choices and really no odor of competition at all here, you are just a team now. It is one of the best co-op experiences ever, but it just has a bunch of asterisks with it, and as a result, barely anybody's ever gotten to play it the ideal way. And it leads to a really bizarre ranking for these games in particular. Like, FSA and Anniversary are both fine in single player and multiplayer, just in different ways, but Triforce Heroes single player is way worse, and Triforce Heroes multiplayer is way better. Hell, I think I had more fun doing stupid Tingle's balloon fight multiplayer than Triforce Heroes single player. Like, man, at least that was neat. At least I have a better time saying I did that. All that being said though, any of these multiplayer Zelda games, it really is still best in short bursts. A couple of hours of a single play session, I almost wanted my partner's dead. Nobody listens to me when I'm right, and I'm right all of the time except for the times that I'm not right, and it's all their fault. Eventually, all three Links travel to the Sky Realm for the final string of challenges, and on stage 4, you finally reach the ultimate... evil seems strong in this instance, but fine. The ultimate evil, the Lady. Not that ominous of a title, but we take it. It's an odd boss for sure, but just like Vaati, I love when a Zelda game is willing to have a unique final antagonist. Like, man, there is no sign of Ganon whatsoever in this game, or even Zelda. Actually, no Zelda, no Ganon at all. It's just Lady. Another brilliantly co-op filled or disgusting single player filled battle later, the Lady is defeated. You can now craft the Lady's Ensemble, and with that new power, you are able to restore Princess Styla's iconic outfit, and yes, her self-confidence. The town celebrates with one final totem pose, and that wraps up The Legend of Zelda Triforce Heroes. Excellent artwork during their credits too, man. I love this style so much. I wish we got more of this. There's also this little information nugget that I totally missed when I first beat the game, that apparently Lady Maud is actually the sister of Madame Couture. They're related. And it does make sense, they are both the ones that are making new outfits for the characters, it's just that one is for good and one is for evil, so there's some lore there, I guess. I don't care though. But yeah, as far as multiplayer goes, this is easily the best one so far. Even the ending is far better than the Four Swords games. Like, before, you seal Vaati, the princess is saved, the other maidens too in the case of adventures, and that's about it. Triforce Heroes simply features so much more heart and personality, and it's just a shame that at its core design, it is really hard to enjoy it the way it was meant to be enjoyed. Plus, with two of these games being at the bottom of the Zelda sales charts, it would be a miracle if they ever gave this a shot again. This joy that I got from this game is basically what I was hoping to get out of Federation Force. It's still wild to me that they tried two different co-op focused games like this so close to each other, and they both failed. Maybe one day Triforce Heroes will hit that sort of cult classic status, but currently, doesn't seem likely. If there is any takeaway from this journey, it's that there is a lot of quality multiplayer experiences in a franchise that is known specifically for its grand single-player adventures. Whether it be a side mode in a single-player game or a title built with multiplayer as its core focus. Sure, they don't all hit the highs of the traditional adventures, but if you find yourself surrounded by the right people, you still got some damn fun games here. And hell, while we're at it, how about all those other handheld Zelda games that we've already covered? Outside of the Breath and Tears duology, console Zelda games have always followed a fairly typical formula, while the handheld games have always tampered with expectations, introducing new worlds and mechanics and art styles, sometimes expanding on existing ones. I don't think it's really fanboyish to say that all Zelda games are special, but man, these handheld adventures are really something else. You simply do not get a point-and-click Tingle romance simulator without being willing to try some weird shit. Giving Link a train instead of a horse is hardly the most original idea Nintendo's come up with here. So what's the final headcount here? We got 7 handheld full quests, we got 3 Tingle oddball journeys, 4-ish multiplayer adventures, and a bright future of these unique spin-offs showing up on home consoles. It's safe to say that, you know what, The Legend of Zelda, it's a pretty good franchise. Oh yeah, also Frog Game, haven't mentioned that for a good while. God, please go play Frog Game 2, that game is so good. So, at the end of the day, The Legend of Zelda,